on this beautiful Thursday afternoon. Drew, how are we doing this week?
Oh, we're doing fantastic. It's 80 degrees outside. I got some golfing in this morning. And before I hear anyone comment, everyone's always got something to say. This is a athletics jersey because shout out to the Sacramento A's or the West Coast A's or the Sacramento A's of Las Vegas or whatever the hell they're going to call themselves next year. And it's an American League team, so I'm allowed to have two baseball teams. I've made an executive decision for my household.
So I have a question about that, just real quick. I know starting off topic is not the best thing, but I love to do it.
I love it.
What's the chances that the A's actually just randomly stay in Sacramento because Las Vegas doesn't want them?
I think the chances that the A's never make it to Las Vegas are extremely high, whether they stay in Sacramento or not. I've been to, I guess they call it Sutter Field now. I've been to Rayleigh Field 105 times. I know that it was built originally with the idea of being able to expand, but there's logistic issues like the clubhouses are behind the outfield. They're not connected to the dugout. Obviously, that's just an off-season worth of renovations and stuff, but I'm not exactly sure a 10,000 to 14,000 person stadium, although the A's only draw like 5,000 to 6,000 people a night because the fans are so upset. Not a shot at the A's fans. I know you guys aren't going on purpose, which I totally respect. I don't know. I think slamming 15,000 people into that field when Aaron Judge comes to town or Juan Soto comes to town or some of these American League guys that you don't get to see in San Francisco all the time will increase ticket sales because you can ask higher prices for those tickets. So we'll see. I don't think that is a long-term stadium for them, but with the rail yards thing not being, the MLS being up in the air now, and there's still development downtown that can happen. Who knows? I mean, I know Vivek Ranadive is highly interested in having a Major League Baseball team in Sacramento, so I wouldn't say that. I would say the odds are more likely they never make it to Vegas, but I would still put the odds on them making it to Vegas over staying in Sacramento a little bit higher towards Vegas, just because ultimately Sacramento is a big market, but it's not the Las Vegas market. So
True. And we'll have more baseball talk later, but let's go ahead and get today's show actually kicked off with the NFL as we always do. And we are finally getting around with 2 weeks left, 2 weeks left exactly until the NFL draft. We're getting around to our draft positional ranking. So for we have offensive tackles we're going to start off with. So the reason why we're starting off with offensive tackles is because we're going to start off with the strongest position, which we feel is offensive tackles. I'm going to move all the way down to the weakest position, which we feel like are tight ends. So I'm going to start off with offensive tackle, then move into wide receivers, and then corners, and then quarterbacks, and then on and on and on and on and on. So,
and before anyone tries to get smart, like, oh, you mocked this person third, blah 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 blah. When we do mock drafts, it's where we think the players are going to go, not necessarily who we rank above the other. So if you see us mock a guy in the top 10, but he's not in the top 3 of the positional rankings, that's just where we think the player is on a big board as opposed to a mock draft. Two completely separate different things.
Absolutely. As Daniel Jeremiah puts it, he does mock drafts with his ears. When he does big boards, he does it with his eyes. So if you see any discrepancies with a mock draft compared to a positional ranking, which you're going to see, especially with mine, I don't know about Drew's because we haven't really shared a whole lot of information back and forth with each other about these positional rankings. But I know with mine, there's a lot of guys in here that I have in my top 5, 4, 3 that maybe I don't have in the first round because, again, it's ears over eyes for the mocks. It's eyes over ears for your big boards. But I'm excited to start this off, man, because I know you said you're a little nervous that we're going to end up in the same areas with our positional rankings, with the same guys in the same places roughly. I think I have a couple of surprises here and there. I like to throw wild shit in there just because I fall in love with a player. I know you do this exact same thing when you text me about certain guys. So let's go and get it kicked off with the offensive tackles. We're going to dive deeper on the top 5, but I do want to shout out my 10 through 6. Drew, I don't know if you have a 10 through 6 to get to. But I'll go and shout mine out first. My number 10 is Kingsley Suamatia. My number 9 is Jordan Morgan. My number 8 is Tyler Guyton. My number 7 is Blake Fisher. And my number 6 is JC Latham. Drew, do you have a 6 through 10, 10 through 6 to get to?
I don't. Unfortunately, I have a real job that takes up my time, and I'm not able to. Let's be honest, top fives are easy, and we could sit here, and I'm not a, I told you at dinner the other night that we should rename the podcast to a scout and a gambler, because you're the scout and I'm the gambler, and I really go based off of what I'm hearing, much like Daniel Jeremiah versus what I'm watching. Because frankly, when I watch college football during the season, I play the hits. I'm not sitting here grinding too much Iowa. I'm more watching the exciting stuff going on. So
right.
I don't have a 6 through 10 on anything except for maybe safety, because there seemed to be 2 top safeties and then a whole bunch of guys that were like could go anywhere from like 60 to 100. So we talked about it. So besides that, I'm a top 5 guy, man. I like to play the hits.
Okay, then let's go ahead and kick it off with your number 5 guy.
Who we have? Clearly this guy's not on your list, because I have at number 5 JC Latham.
Yep. So JC Latham was my 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you see JC Latham more as a tackle or a guard?
It's really a team fit. I think it's going to be specifically for this player, because there's teams that want that 370-pound, 6'8" guy, and then there's the teams, power run teams, and then there's the teams that run the zone read, the wide zone stuff, that need somebody who's a little more agile. I think a player, not to jump too far away, but I think a player like Graham Barton in the 49ers run scheme fits all over the place, whereas a lot of teams might just see him as a center or a guard, depending on a Steelers offense with their power run game, or a Colts offense with Jonathan Taylor. These power running backs, they want these bigger, outside tackles. So does he fit as a tackle for some teams? Yes. Other teams, no. For the sake of this, I put him as a tackle.
Okay. Yeah. I see him. I agree with you. I think that his form as is, and I guess we see everything through different lenses, right? You see a lot of your lenses through, the 49ers. So you might, gauge some of your stuff off of that. I see a lot of my lens through the Cowboys. So I would see JC Latham more of a guard in our schemes and situation more than a tackle. But yeah, I totally see what you're saying. It's not that I didn't like any of the guys 6 through 10. I genuinely think my guys 6 through 10, JC Latham, Blake Fisher, Tyler Guyton, Jordan Morgan, Kingsley Suamatia, I think all those guys are potential starters in the league in a very short period of time, year 2 at max. I mean, guys who are more developmental, like Tyler Guyton, Kingsley Suamatia, and then JC Latham to a certain extent, are all going to make an impact more year 2 or 3. I think Blake Fisher and Jordan Morgan are going to make an impact right now. I really like all these guys, but my number 5 is Amarius Mims. I don't know if he's in your top 5, if we're going to see him there, but it's not that JC Latham is bad. It's just, this is how good these offensive tackles to me are. Amarius Mims is just the guy to me that is a hulking monster of a man. God don't make them like that, that big, that agile, that fast. Newsflash, this man has only started 8 games as a tackle in college, and this man is my number 5 tackle. And I'm not huge on the whole, I see potential. I definitely do. That's why I have guys like Kingsley Suamatia my 10, but I genuinely like his tape. I think his tape is genuinely impressive. His feet are a little bit heavy. His kick slides are a little bit slow. He's not super powerful off the line. Like when he gets into the run game, like let's say Broderick Jones was last year. I remember him being just really explosive right off the jump. And he's not exactly like that to that point, but there's a lot of sets where he's really agile and his kick slide is really wide and he gets to his set really fast. He doesn't get burned on a lot of secondary moves. If he gets his hands on you and he punches them right in your chest, it's kind of game over for a lot of the guys in college. They can't really compete with a guy with that type of length and that type of speed. And then his grip strength is just, again, it's incredible, super powerful, super strong, super tall. and really athletic. So I don't know if you have Amarius Mims in your top 5.
I don't. 6'7", 340 though. The man's a beast. I I did almost go to 8 here on the tackles just because of because of Mims, because of Graham Barton, and because of Tyler Guyton. But you said top 5, so I did top 5, and it wasn't. When I put a JC Latham in there on the tackle line, it's more just about where I'm seeing him mocked to these teams, and I think to myself, well, if you're taking a JC Latham that high, then you're planning on playing him at tackle because where I see him going, you don't need to stretch for a guard at that point. Maybe a versatile person, maybe a swing tackle or whatever, but frankly, if you're taking a tackle in the top 20, you're hoping to insert him, if not week 1, year 1, and cement him as somebody who's going to play offensive lineman for you for a really long time. So
yeah, absolutely. Who's at your number 4 spot?
So here we go with 4, 3, and 2. I'm just calling them the 3 Fs. You know what I mean? Like I kind of am curious how you ranked them, just because I think that when the mocks first started rolling out, 2 or 3 tackles in the top 12 we were seeing, and now we're only seeing 1 in the top 12 because all these teams are jumping up. So I'm kind of more interested to see who you put at 4, because I know you're actually. Well, go ahead. You give me 4. I'm kind of curious to see. Did you go with the conventional wisdom at 1, or did you put somebody different at 1?
My 1 is chalk, but it was hard for me with 1 and 2.
Okay. Cool.
I'll break that down when I get to it. Do you want me to just fire off 4, 3, 2 real quick?
Yeah, just hit him.
Troy Fautanu. 3 is Talisi Fuanga, and 2 is Olu Fashanu.
See, I knew you were going to do that. I put Fashanu at 4.
Yeah. Go ahead. Why Fashanu at 4?
I don't really feel too strongly about this one way or another. When I was looking at the offensive linemen, I really just didn't do what I should have done. I really just looked at a lot of mock drafts, and I'm looking at, all right, I'm looking at PFF's big board. I'm looking at Matt Miller's big board. I'm looking at SB Nation's big board, even though they seem to be kind of like, whack over there. I'm looking at a lot of different places, and it just seems like these top 3 guys, I'm sorry, 2 through 4, because everybody thinks Joe Alt's number 1. People are all over the board with these guys on who they think's best. And I think the fact of the matter is it's probably going to turn out that 2 of these guys are going to be stone cold Pro Bowlers, and 1 guy's going to be a massive bust. That's just going to be the way it shakes out. Yeah. But I did put Fashanu at 4, even though I know you'll love him. And I don't know if maybe I did it subconsciously to give us something to argue about here, but I'm not really trying to tell you why he's the 4th best tackle in this class, because you probably wanted to put him 1 if you could, if you've gotten pretty crazy. So
I did want to put him 1. Originally when I first did my offensive tackle rankings, now a couple of months ago, when I initially did them, Fashanu was my 1. And I thought about this, and I'm like, it's because he has the best pass blocking in this class, and it's not close. You had guys who are who's homeboy from Ohio State, wears 44, has the long hair. I always forget his name. But bro just stayed away from him in the Penn State game. He just completely went away from him. He did not want to go up against Fashanu, but he went right up against Joe Alt, and he had no problems doing it. And there's a couple of those examples throughout the film in this past year. He's the best pass blocking tackle in the class. It's not very close. And his run blocking isn't as abysmal as people want to make it out to be. But my idea when I put him at 1 was he can get better. He can develop that until the combine happened and they measured his hands. And when you have never before seen small hands for a tackle, it's concerning. That's probably why you can't get a grip on guys. That's probably why you're not moving guys around. Instead of gripping them and moving them, you're pushing them. You're just pushing them and pushing because you can't get a grip on them. And I think that's just unfortunate. He just wasn't blessed with that, those type of limbs. That's the unfortunate part. So that's why he's my 2 instead of my 1. I really like all these guys, right? 1 through 4. I like Troy Fautanu has the extreme versatility with playing tackle and playing guard, kind of play him anywhere that you want. his problem, the Fatanu's problem, is just he's a little bit too aggressive. He gets overextended sometimes, and he doesn't have a lot of weight in his lower half of his body, so it takes him a lot to kind of recover off of that. So he can get beat if he overextends and his shoulders get over his toes. So he does have that problem, especially in the run game. He can kind of overextend a little bit. Fuanga's so much fun to watch. This dude is like a cannon, shot out of a cannon. As soon as that ball is snapped and there's a run play, he's running after you, bro, and he's so quick. I think he has the quickest kick slide out of any of the tackles here on the list. The only reason he's not 2 or 1 is because I like Fashanu, and Alt's just that good. It just comes back to, he's like, damn, he's really boring to watch because he's really good at a lot of things. I like to be able to watch guys, and yes, they're really good, they're really impressive, but I like to be able to pick things out. Okay, he's not very good there. Okay, he's pretty weak there. Oh, he's clicking his heels. His kick slide's not very good on a lot of these plays. Like, let's see what else I can pick out of it. Joe Alt's just boring, man. I mean, he really is. He's just because he's that good. It's really unfortunate. It's funny I say that, but it is unfortunate. He's just that good. There's not that much that, I mean, he's big. He's 6'8", but he has a lot of good core strength, and he plays with a lot of like center of gravity. For a 6'8" guy to play with a lot of center of gravity and play low is impressive. There's not a lot of guys who get up inside of his pads. He keeps his hands exactly where they're supposed to be. He's just boring at the end of the day. So,
yeah, I mean, Fashanu had an amazing pass blocking grade PFF, second highest rated, I think he was, right behind a guy who's nowhere near on our list. But you know how PFF is. Where he really struggled, where he was really graded poorly, was zone run. And that's where we kind of talked about it earlier. It really just depends on the fit and where these players are going to be drafted. When you look at a player like now I can't think of his name. When you're looking at a player, do you draft to the potential of your team, or do you just draft best player available? When you look at Joe Alt, and I got it up in front of me, Joe Alt is the second highest ranked pass blocker out of all the tackles last year. He's also the second highest run blocker. Funnily enough, Fuaga is the highest rated run blocker in the class, but he's a very, very average pass blocker grade PFF wise. He's all the way down in like the top 30, which, I mean, obviously we're talking until you go and look at that play by play, you don't really know if what happened on those exact plays that he was poorly guarded on. But Fashanu, clearly a thing that he struggles with is the zone run blocking.
Yeah. Obviously,
if there's a team very, very high in the draft who doesn't run a zone run scheme, then it doesn't matter to them. So it's just one of those things. When you really start breaking down and I know I'll hear the criticism, PFF isn't the end all be all, whatever. You know who the number one running quarterback in the NFL was last year per PFF?
Running quarterback?
Yeah. Running situations.
Damn it.
Should be easy.
Yeah,
my boy Brock. Number one running quarterback in QB situations last year. So that when you got Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and those guys, that might be a little like, are you serious, Brock Purdy? So I know PFF's not the end all be all, but generally speaking, they're looking at every single snap. And me, I'm just playing the highlights. So obviously on this one, number one was pretty easy. But I wouldn't argue with anybody that would want to mix the 3 T's, as I call them, 2, 3, 4. And if you want to argue JC Latham and Mims, I don't really hate that either. So
yeah, no, absolutely. And there's
excellent tackle class.
100%. That's why we started kicking it off with the tackle class, because we believe it is the best position group in the draft. If you need a tackle, it's a great draft to need one, because if you don't get one in the first round, there's a good chance there's going to be a guy in the second or third round that you can go ahead and grab who's going to end up being really good. Before we move on to the wide receivers, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I've done 117 mock drafts, and I'm continually impressed with the amount of offensive line talent that's available in the second or third round.
Yeah.
I'm actually really excited about this draft for the offensive line talent, because in recent years, the defenses have just started to dominate the trenches. And this is one of those weird years where edge is kind of whack, and defensive line, there's a couple stars, but there's not a Jalen Carter out there or anything like that. So I'm really excited for the offensive talent. offensive line talent that's coming in this year, just because there seems to be a couple real like thoroughbreds that you might just stick at a position, whether it be right tackle or left tackle, and it might just be they just might play the next 7 or 8 years on their team that drafted them. So I love that shit. I love these teams that draft well, and let's just say I'm not a big fan of the way the Rams do it. I like the teams that draft well, build their team well, because that's how you sustain success, is by not paying $100 million to guards.
All right, let's go to move on to the wide receivers. Once again, Drew, I do have a 6 through 10. This is where it can get a little weird. Oh man, this is where it can get really weird for a lot of people. So 6 through 10. 10, I have Brendan Rice, great Jerry Rice.
Let's go. All right.
9, a little bit further down than some people have him. I have Keon Coleman. 8, I have Troy Franklin. 7, higher than what other people have him, I have Tez Walker. 6, surprised he missed the top 5, Brian Thomas Jr.
What?
Yep.
Okay. All right. Let's get funky.
So, do you have any 6 through 10? Or you want to start off with your 5?
No, we could just jump right into 5. I didn't do anything crazy here. I know that it would have been fun, since people are starting to really, really fall in love with Xavier Worthy to, and I didn't, haven't potentially heard his name yet. So maybe somebody has fallen in love with them, but I don't have a 6 through 10 on this. So let's just rock this top 5. Who you got at 5?
5, I have Mr. Ladd McConkey.
Okay.
I had to put him in somewhere. I've been burned, pun intended, on speedy wide receivers before in the past. And when a guy is big, tall, and fast, I don't think it works out as much as we hope it was. I think there's a small chance a wide receiver turns out to be a star, right? There's even a smaller chance if their main calling card is just speed. Christian Watson. And when Brian Thomas is being fit in that same category, where his route tree is very limited, but he's very, again, that type of height and that type of speed is a rarity to come across. 4.33 speed at his weight is just not normal, right? And I do recognize that, and I appreciate that. But there's a situation, I don't see a real situation, I should say, where Ladd McConkey isn't really successful in the NFL. Ladd McConkey feels pretty surefire as just one of those guys for the next 8 years in the NFL who's going to be one of the better slot guys that you're like, oh yeah, well, better, like top slot guys in the league, and Ladd's going to come up 9 times out of 10 in that top 3 to 5 range. Some people sleep on this athleticism highly. Maybe that's because he's a white guy who plays a slot receiver role, but he's really athletic. He's really quick. Look at that 40 speed. He's not just a route running technician, which he is. He doesn't really have a whole lot of issues. I think he just his release has some false steps. So he's not eating up as much space as he should be. He's kind of doing a little bit of the shakes too much when he's about to break on a route. And then he has a limited catch radius for jump balls, but you're not looking for a guy like that to go out and go get jump balls. So that's not what you're drafting him for. Outside of that, I think Ladd's going to be really successful in this league for a really long time. And I had to fit him somewhere. And number 5 felt like the great spot to put him, because 4 through 1, I like all the guys. I can't really put anyone higher, especially my number 4 guy is like my favorite wide receiver in the draft. So 5, I got Ladd. Who do you have?
I thought about putting Ladd here, but I put A.D. Mitchell at 5, mostly because I keep seeing people mocking Ladd to the 49ers, and I really don't like the idea of that. And so it might have been like my bitterness towards that mock draft that I was just like, you know what, I'm going to put you at number 6. He's got devastating quickness. His long speed isn't bad. Obviously he's not going up to the jump, but I just think it's one of those players that when you look at the offensive coordinators of the NFL right now, obviously Kyle Shanahan, Mike McDaniel, those type of innovators, and the ability to get a player like Ladd constantly on linebackers or safeties or anything like that. If he goes to the right team, which is funny because I'm sitting here thinking I don't like him on the Niners, but if he goes to the right team, I think he could be absolutely devastating in what he can do. And we've seen, I don't want to run off 10 of the token white wide receiver slot guys. We've seen Renfro and Edelman and Beasley and all these other guys, but Wes Welker. It just seems like if you look at the NFL landscape right now, they're really devoid of that type of player right now. And he just seems like he might fit right in. I don't hate you having him at 5 at all, especially with you having Brian Thomas falling out of your top 5. But I left him out. I went A.D. Mitchell at 5, and then the aforementioned Brian Thomas Jr., I put him at 4.
Okay. Talk about Brian Thomas Jr., and then we can get to 80.
So if this was last year, Brian Thomas isn't anywhere on the landscape here, but he improved so much from 2022 to 2023, much like other players that we're going to talk about later on that I think can just be really coached up at the next level and be really successful at the next level. My biggest issue with Brian Thomas that I'm a little worried about is his ability to beat press coverage. And if you Google Brian Thomas and if you Google draft profile and you read 3 of them, all 3 of them will mention the same thing, that he may struggle to beat press coverage. And you don't see a ton of press coverage all the time in the NFL because if it gets beat, it gets beat. But if you have a player that's known to not be able to beat press coverage, then he's going to see it a lot. And these young wide receivers have really been tested in recent years. I know the first couple of games with Seattle, Jackson Smith and Jigba, people got up in his chops to see how he was going to handle it. Rashee Rice, that's a whole nother story. We won't even get into that guy. Just these young, quick twitch wide receivers pressing them at the line to see if they can handle the physicality of the NFL. And if Brian Thomas can beat press coverage regularly at the NFL level, then the sky's the limit for this guy. Absolutely. But he has not proved yet that he can. But everything else really connects for me, so I have him at 4.
At 4, I have A.D. Mitchell. So I wanted to leave off AD until this. This is my favorite wide receiver in the draft. I know obviously he's not the best wide receiver in the draft. I've just fallen in love with AD Mitchell. I think this man has superstar potential. He hasn't posted the numbers of a superstar, right? You look at Malik Neighbors and Marvin Harrison Jr. You look at these numbers that they're posting, right? 14, 15, 12, 100-yard, seasons in college, and AD just hasn't put up that type of production. But man, dude, he has superstar written all over him. How fluid he is as a route runner, fast footwork. You have the contested catch ability. His biggest issue is his attitude as a superstar diva receiver is kind of an issue. And then the posting of elite numbers, which is like, okay, well, your quarterback isn't the greatest fucking guy in the world. So kind of says a lot about Quinn Ewers that you can't take guys a little bit further. You're not mocked a lot higher in future drafts because of AD Mitchell and Xavier Worthy and Jatavian Sanders, which we'll talk about later. But you have a lot of guys on your team and you can't do a whole lot with them. AD Mitchell is some of my favorite tape to watch, and I've seen him be compared to CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens. I see a lot of those type of comparisons flying off with them, and I see a little bit for sure. I love some of the clips where he doesn't run a lot of routes when he knows it's not coming towards him. Then he will go ahead or he has an incident where he runs to the sideline and he screams at his coach to get me the fucking ball. But then right after that, they give him the ball and he goes and makes an insane contested catch touchdown. It's just the dude's insane. Where he beats a dude off the line just for fun. He knows the ball's not coming to him, but beats a guy off the line and he turns around and points at him and he fucking laughs at him just for fun. He has superstar written all over him. His attitude's definitely going to be a problem in the NFL. They have programs and stuff for all this type of shit, but he has the diva wide receiver written on his name right now, and I'm falling in love with him. I love AD.
Yeah, it's funny. I watched like a 3-minute YouTube video on him the other day, and the guy was breaking him down. He's like, yeah, when he's the primary receiver, when he knows he gets to the ball, he's got CeeDee Lamb written all over him. And then when he doesn't get the ball, when he knows it's not going to him, he's some mixture of T. Higgins and George Pickens. And I know there was a bunch of those videos last year of George Pickens when it was a run play or whatever, he wouldn't even come off the line. And I'm just like, well, that's not going to play at the NFL level. Yeah. I think people also criticize his footwork. I'm not going to sit here and criticize his footwork in a big board just because, again, that's something that I think can be coached. Like the NFL has wide receiver coaches for a reason. He might have wasted steps in his footwork, but they'll figure that out. If the talent is there, frankly, Jerry Rice versus Randy Moss. When you're uber talented Randy Moss, you don't have to work as hard. When you're not uber talented Jerry Rice, you have to put in the effort every day and you become the greatest of all time. So when you are blowing by everybody at the college level, the high school level, you don't have to put as much time into the mechanics and the footwork of your release and everything like that. But when you get to the next level, they're going to really drill that in for him. So to be honest with you, I saw Brian Thomas mocked at number 12 or 11 or 13 something the other day, something extremely high. And I was just
I've heard 9.
Boy, oh boy.
No, 8.
Yeah, I mean, it
8
seemed,
Falcons, yeah.
And I'm just like, I wonder if people will look back on this draft and think to themselves, man, like it really should have gone the big 3, and then it should have been 2 guys from Texas back to back. And I like Ladd, but what Xavier Worthy brings to the table is a little bit more exciting than Ladd to me in terms of what I want to watch on the TV excitement factor. 3rd and 6 and getting the first down is awesome. Trust me, we got a guy, Juwan Jennings, that is amazing at it. But
3rd and Juwan.
That third and Benny. Yep. I guess that rolls us right into 3-2-1. I think you and me are locked up on this one, unless you're going to put Rome in front of Marvin Harrison Jr. for some freaking reason.
I might.
Oh God.
3 Malik Neighbors, 2 Rome, and 1 Marvin Harrison Jr.
All right, good. Thank you.
So this isn't going to be the chalk popular one. I know some people have this the exact same way. Why? The question is going to be for some people before you start, typing it up. Let's wait a fucking second. Why are we putting Rome over Malik? What do you see in it? And then I'll jump on whatever you see too.
I just don't think it's hard to explain, but it's just when you're looking at 2 and super talented wide receivers, like Malik Neighbors is taking top 5 visits at this point, right? Yeah. When you're looking at players like this, and I'm gonna throw this out here, I believe Malik Neighbors is getting drafted over Rome, just to throw that out there. When I watch the 2 of them together, I just say, wow, a little bit more often with Rome than I do with Neighbors. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with Neighbors being consistent game in and game out, and it is what it is. But there's just something about Rome that just, since I started watching him outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., that's a lot of background noise in my headphones from this dumb phone. Outside of Marvin Harrison Jr., he just seems like he's got everything. And I know that's not hard-hitting analysis, but when you're just talking about who you expect to be, successful, that's not the conversation here. I think they're both going to be extremely successful. It's just, I love Rome. I don't know what to tell you except for I love him. Like that's what it is. I just think he's a hell of a talent. I think he's going to do everything at the next level really, really well. And we don't need to argue CeeDee Lamb and Brandon Ayuk. We don't. It's 2 different teams. It's 2 different things that those 2 players are asked to do. We don't need to argue that. We don't even need to argue Justin Jefferson and God damn it, the Bengals guy,
Ja'Marr Chase.
Thank you. We don't need to argue that. They're amazing talents. It doesn't matter who's 1 and 2. It's the same thing here. Rome, Neighbors, they're great. I just think it's Rome. That's my hodgepodge analysis for you.
Yeah, so it's not – the thing is here's what I have. My cons for Marvin Harrison Jr. on my Google Doc here is 1 line. It doesn't even take up a whole line. My cons for Rome takes up a line and a half. My cons for Malik takes up a little bit more room than that. The biggest problem with Malik Neighbors is he relies on his uncanny lookalikes to Antonio Brown when he's running routes, because he's one of the only other guys that you could see him change direction and speed up at the same time. It's something we don't see come into the league that often. That's why people are so excited about him, right? He has the big play ability. You give him a 2-yard drag and all of a sudden he could take it to the house because he's just that explosive. He has a lot of issues. I think the same thing Brian Thomas does in press. I think when guys get their hands on him and disrupt the beginning of his route, he almost like forgets what he's supposed to do. It's like he coordinates out his route before he does it, and he doesn't expect any resistance to come to it in terms of the press exactly to him. So I think he could, use a little work with his hands on hand fighting initially in the beginning of contact, get his mind working towards that. I think it's a lot of mental stuff to get his hands up and, try to chop and get him to do a couple more things. But that change of direction speed while he's in breaking on a route is stupid. It's ridiculous. The thing with Rome is the only thing you can really be like, oh, not a lot of yards after the catch. That's kind of it.
Yeah, but so I've seen that, right? I've seen that, but Malik Neighbors 6 foot, 200 pounds. Rome 6'3", 215. Big difference there. Just in terms of durability, and also Rome, like the yak thing, because I mean Marvin Harrison Jr. has kind of got the same issue, right? He's not super fast with his hands in the ball.
Adequate, but not elite type situation. Yeah.
Think like Deebo Samuel, right? His speed with the ball is way quicker than just his 40 time, right? The thing with Rome is that who's throwing that football to him? Like, let's look at Yak as the ball is in a perfect placement. You get the ball perfectly on the slant. You get the ball perfect on the dig, and then you have the ability to make a move. Instead of your catch radius is all over the place. Your catch on your hip, you're catching high. That was the one thing that stood out to me with Rome when I was watching him. Is just like, holy hell, if it's like in the vicinity of him, he's catching the ball.
Yeah.
And to the detriment of him and his Yak stats and things like that anyways, because he's not always been put in the proper position to succeed on the route with the way the ball was placed. And that comes down to a quarterback issue, and I'm not going to hold that against him.
Yeah, no, for sure. And it's funny because he has that on his deep routes. I think his deep route running is, you can rival Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rome Odunze against each other with the deep route separation. That final gear, it's funny, the final gear that both those guys have, and it's not like you see it. You don't see them go into the final gear, but it's so smooth they go into it that they could separate just a little bit more to be able to just get a little bit of space, be able to catch that ball is impressive. And I think those two guys on the deep route separation is really good, but they're both good everywhere. And the thing is, we're not talking a lot about Marvin because we've heard it all from Marvin, right? Marvin's going to go, as high as 4.
Yeah, we knew this 3 years ago.
And it's just, you see it year after year after year. And he's another one of those guys. He kind of is in that Joe Alt category where you see him play and you go, yeah, he's kind of fucking boring. He does it so smooth where you're just like, dude, what the fuck is going on? Does he not care? Or is he just that good? No, he's just that good where everything looks like he's not trying because everything's just so smooth with him. That's what's frustrating. It's another one of those guys just kind of boring to watch. And you wouldn't expect that from the guy who's supposed to go, one off the board when it comes to wide receivers. So
I think a lot of times there's a lot of fatigue with
definitely
certain players and great wide receivers out of Ohio State, right? Like, I think that's just kind of there's just fatigue when it comes to certain things like that. Yeah. Although I'm interested to see how the narrative is going to change, obviously, with the transfer portal and the NIL money and these players going to different places and emerging from different schools. Like Caleb Williams, the number 1 draft pick in the class, coming from USC, and teams like, I'm not going to start this conversation, but the Colorado Buffaloes and things like that. Just these seeing the kind of the recruits that Idaho has landed this offseason, just things like that. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how much this school prejudice is going to play out in the coming years with the talent being so diversified. We're no longer getting, I don't think the days of getting 20 draft picks off of a team from Alabama I think that's kind of ending. So it'll be interesting to see how things like, but he's from this small school, if that stuff starts to die because of the diversification of college football, for good or for bad.
Get your fucking dictionaries out. All right. We're throwing it all at you.
I'm an educated person. Okay. And there ain't no script. This ain't the WWE. This promo was not scripted by nobody. I just come out here and I shoot, I drop pipe bombs like my boy CM Punk, and that we just go. We just go.
Let's jump into the corners. I think this is our third ranking position group. Very impressive corner class. I'm going to fire off my 10 through 6 once again. 10, I have Mr. TJ Tampa. 9, I have Jerian Jones. 8, I have Cam Hart. 7, I have Ennis Rakestraw. And 6, I have Mike, and I struggle with this name, Mike Standrish still. Corner out of Michigan, the slot corner.
I'm going to look him up now. I'm going to try to say his name. I saw a lot of Ennis being drafted by the 49ers when it all first started. So I think that kind of just shows you where Sandra Still? That seems about
Sanders
right.
still? Yeah.
The guy from Michigan.
Yeah. The slot corner from Michigan. Yeah.
How does Kamari Lassiter not break your top 10? Or did I miss? Oh, is he he's not in the top 5. There's no way he's in the top 5.
He's 11th.
Oh, okay, well there you go. That's boring. But all right, so I'm gonna shoot out. I don't have a I think TJ Tampa might top the break the first round. I think he could with the Detroit Lions all of a sudden maybe needing a corner. Like I said, Ennis was mocked to the 49ers a bunch of times, so there's potential. Man, I honestly we're all over the first round, and I get it, but hell, the second and third round of this draft are going to be very, very exciting because there's some exciting players that are going to be sitting there. I think I'm the most excited I am for an offensive lineman is Christian Haynes, just to see how high that dude goes because he's a beast. But
absolutely.
At number 5, kill me. This might be somebody's number 1. Whatever, suck it. I got Nate Wiggins.
I also have number 5 is Nate Wiggins,
and the only reason is the dude I'm sure is uber talented, but. Yeah. He's a little small, and if you're gonna
say that again, dude,
if you're gonna Nate Wiggins gonna guard CeeDee Lamb. CeeDee Lamb's a big boy. Nate Wiggins gonna come up and tackle Deebo Samuel? That's a big boy. Yeah. When you're running outside zone reads with some of these premier running backs, like Nate Wiggins bringing down a healthy Nick Chubb on the boundary, maybe. Yeah. I don't know. I don't think so. That now again, he's in my top 5 of the best corners in the draft. So don't kill me for criticizing the guy. It's just that's the reason why he's at 5 instead of a little higher, like some players have, or some people have put him.
And it's not just that, right? It's him, his weight. It puts him at 5, but also the guys in front of him are just that good. I think that's what it comes down to. Again, when we're talking about the third best position group in this class, we're still in the same conversation as the guys in front of some of the other guys. Doesn't mean that the guys behind them are bad. It just means these guys are really good. That's where we're at right now. Yeah, he's just small. I think he has good athleticism. He's lengthy and rangy. He has really fluid hips. That's what the first thing that popped out to me. He has really fluid hips, and he doesn't get beat off the line too often. He doesn't play a whole lot of press, obviously, because of how small he is. I very rarely see him just beat deep as well. His deep speed is really impressive. I think the one time I saw him get beat was Tez Walker, so that was really the one time I really noticed it. And it was just, he had him covered up really well. Just a really well-placed ball by Drake May on the back shoulder, exactly where Nate couldn't get to it. So I think he's really good. He's really balanced in terms of playing man or zone coverage. He's just really light, and that's it. And these guys 4 through 1 are just really talented.
And you know what? The thing about it is these top 5 rankings, like we just did tackles, right? And you and me, we can argue Amarius Mims and JC Latham all night. There might be 8 tackles. There might be top 8 tackles that'll be starting right tackle for the San Francisco 49ers who were just in the Super Bowl. Right. It's the same thing with the corners. There might be 10 guys, 12 guys that are starting corners in the NFL tomorrow. And we're trying to argue who the top 5 out of 12 starters is. So if you guys love Nate Wiggins, if you want him to be your number 1, that's cool. First of all, call us an idiot in the chat and like the video. That's all you got to do.
Who's your number 4?
I really hated that I did this because there's been times where I thought he was the number 1 corner in the draft. So, but just watching a little bit more and really kind of coming up on a certain individual. I got Kool-Aid at number 4. And it was tough, but I just think the guys I got in front of them are I'm starting to come around on a certain guy that I've been critical of, and the other 2 guys are just studs. So Kool-Aid comes in at number 4, not for any other reason except for the 2 guys in front of them are, like I said, absolute studs. And I think the upside of positional versatility on a third guy is more than what Kool-Aid can provide to a team.
Yeah, no, I can see that. I think I'm curious on how we have our 3. I'm curious on how we have just. I think we're all over the place with the 4, 3, 2, 1. My 4 is his teammate, Terrion Arnold. He was originally 3, and I made a promise to a certain somebody that if somebody ran a 4-2-2, or sorry, a 4-4-2, sorry, a 4-4-2, that I would place him a little higher. And son of a bitch, he ran a 4.42 and he was projected a 4.5. So I moved somebody up one spot. So Terrion Arnold is my number 4. I have a problem with him getting beat underneath. It felt a little bit too often. I was seeing it. He is really good on the boundary and he's really good on the outside. He's really good in zone. The only problem is he felt too comfortable kind of like turning around. Like he flips his hips immediately and turns around. His back pedal, he almost wants to turn immediately and start running with the guy. But that leaves him open for the digs. That leaves him open for the curls. That leaves him open for the drags. That leaves him open for a lot of stuff. And he did it often. And that was my main issue with him. He originally was he was originally my 3, and I had a lot of issues. But he's also a great athlete, really good recovery speed. That's why even though he might get beat on some of those turnarounds, he's going to turn back around. He's going to catch right back up to you, and he's a pretty decent tackler. I know not a lot of people give him credit for that. I think he's an okay tackler against wide receivers. He's not going to show up too much in the run game, mainly for the lack of not for the lack of ability, but for the lack of effort. He doesn't really want to, which most top corners don't want to tackle anyways. So I'm not gonna knock him too much. But he plays a lot of man coverage, just like my number 1 corner. But again, that turning around, getting beat underneath, I saw it happen a little bit too much. So he's my 4.
Yeah, and I've seen that on him. The thing about that is I'm going to keep going. I'm going to say this probably another 10 more times on this podcast is just coaching. I think there's some really great secondary coaches in the NFL, and they're going to coach that out of them. They're going to coach the technique. And what's going to happen is if I want Arnold, who I guess I should say this, I put him at number 3 in front of Kool-Aid. I want him to stop using his athleticism to close the gap on when he makes mistakes. I want his athleticism to intercept the football. I want his athleticism to turn into pass breakups. Some secondary coach out there is going to take Arnold. They're going to fix the footwork and they're going to fix his, I don't want to say lazy. It's just sloppy maybe because he knows he can make it up with athleticism. They're going to close that gap and his athleticism is really going to put him into the position for pass breakups and interceptions. And if he can get his footwork to the next level, then he's going to be one of these corners that people just don't throw at because even if he's a step behind, he can make it up with athleticism. And that's why I have him at 3. One of the things that with Kool-Aid is that I think he's I think he's very handsy down the field. Like I think that I know I've seen a lot where people talk about he may get a lot of defensive pass interferences and he may get a lot of holding calls and things like that. And, there's a corner for the 49ers right now that the book against him is just throw it deep on him because you're going to get a PI. Like if you get him one-on-one, just run that man deep and throw it up there because he's going to put his hands on him and get the penalty. And those defensive pass interference penalties down the field are absolutely devastating in the NFL. So I just think coaching up Arnold with the footwork is going to allow him to be a little more successful. But again, we're talking about the top 5 corners. So
you said that's your 3, right?
Yeah, Terrion Arnold is my 3. So your 3 is
Cooper DeJean.
Ooh.
So Cooper is my 3. Cooper's a really good athlete. Great size. The best tackling corner in the draft, right? He's probably a slot, maybe a safety. He can play outside if he needs to. Problem is he doesn't play a whole lot of press coverage on the outside. 199 snaps played on the outside, so 25% over the past 2 years. He is a great athlete, but his change of direction and agility is just not fantastic because of his size. He's stiff in the hips a little bit, but he's quick and he can make it up. And when that pass, it's almost like he's allowing that pass to happen. So he knows he could tackle the guy in front of him. He knows he's just a little bit beat, but he knows as soon as the guy tries to turn up the field, he can get to him and tackle him right before the first down and that can work. But the problem is there's a lot of really fucking athletic guys in the NFL. A lot of really quick guys and a lot of guys who can break those tackles. You're not going to let Debo catch the fucking ball and then you're going to try to bring him down because I don't care how good of a tackler you are. There's not a whole lot of corners in this league that are going to bring down Debo one-on-one in the open field. It's going to be a problem. But outside of that, good size, stout in the run defense, and his footwork is pretty decent. I do like his footwork and his IQ and his communication with his teammates because he does play a lot of the slot role. Almost sometimes plays like a linebacker, role. Sometimes in dime he plays a linebacker role. So he does have a lot of communication IQ with his teammates, and you see him shouting stuff out, and you see him pointing in kind of direction. He's almost playing Mike, right? He's playing Mike almost as a slot corner, and he's telling guys to move around, telling guys what's going to happen. So he's really smart. Again, it's that not sure how successful he's going to be on the outside, and his flipping his hips is a little bit slow, in my opinion. Your number 2. We probably have the same one. Wait. Oh shit! Wait, who you have 2?
Well, I mean, unless you're putting Kool-Aid at 1, are you putting Kool-Aid at 1?
I might.
Oh man, I put Mitchell at number 2.
I have Mitchell at number 2.
Okay,
I do. The Mitchell was my 1. He was, I think, the second corner I watched, and I left him at 1 for a while until I watched Kool-Aid, and I like and I know this isn't a great way to go about it, but I like his floor. I think he's not a ball hawking corner, but he's really intelligent. He's really good on screens. He's really good at tackling. I think his, yes, the holding and the defensive pass interference stuff is probably going to be an issue on the next level. And his change of direction ability is good. It's just not elite, right? But everything else, I think has great length. I think he's really intelligent in zone. He's really intelligent in press. His recovery speed is good enough to make up. So I think Arnold and Kool-Aid play very similarly. I just think Kool-Aid has a little bit more tape on him.
A little more sugar.
It's a little bit more on Kool-Aid in terms of his tape, to say, he makes it up a lot more. He's a little bit more intelligent with his hips, and when he turns, and he doesn't get beat a whole lot. Those screen passes, again, he's really smart with. So I like Kool-Aid as my 1. Quinyon as my 2, though. I want you to go ahead and take this, because I feel like this guy came out of nowhere and flew up the boards. And you look at the tape and you see exactly, the minute you see him step on the field, you're like, God damn, bro, that's an NFL corner right there. And you watch him play, and you're almost jaw dropped for a lot of the time. But go ahead.
I mean, I just really like Quinyon. I had to look at a lot of different draft profiles just to find multiple draft profiles that would even have the same con listed. Not because he has a whole bunch of cons, but I think that people are just you got to put something on the con line, right? You can't just say he's perfect. And the one consistent that I found a couple times is he likes to get bit on double moves by the wide receiver. But frankly, I just think that's a product of, at the college level, quarterbacks will start following the cornerbacks, with their eyes. And it's really, not biting on the double move. I know that people have said with Quinyon that he gets lost in zone coverage a little bit. So losing your man in zone coverage and getting bit on double moves definitely seems like the root basis of the same issue, which, 2 things. It either gets coached up and it becomes not a problem, and now he's an all elite corner, or it gets exposed and he's absolutely can't be on the field. Now, based off of what I see, everything else in his game, they're going to coach it up. It was really hard for me to do these rankings because I've been outspoken about Cooper DeJean not having a position. And instead of me deciding that inside corner, outside corner, or safety, you know what? He's not as valuable to me because we don't know where we're going to play him. I've decided that he is my number 1 corner because he can play everywhere, and he could play everywhere really, really well. I think that you're talking about a guy that's going to have a really long career in the NFL, because when he starts to struggle at corner, you can move him to safety.
Yeah.
He can come down in the box. He can play inside corner. And frankly, I just think that he's going to be undervalued, and he's going to surprise a lot of people. And I don't want to make it into a skin color thing or anything, but I just think that when we think about the best athletes in the NFL, we go to the best athletes in the world. Realistically, I just think that he's going to play corner extremely well. And there's going to be a defensive coordinator that's smart enough. We hear positionalist basketball all the time. We hear, LeBron James is a point guard and a center and a power forward. All that. I think you could really do the same thing with Cooper. It reminds me a lot of some of these players that were too early for their time, like a Taylor Mays back in the day. The 49ers drafted him. He didn't have a position. I think you could just take Cooper Bridges-Jean. I think you could put him all over the field and he could be successful anywhere that he wants to be.
Yeah.
The one thing I don't want to see for him is I don't want to see him position jumping. I want him to, if you're going to come into a game plan, and I hope that they can leave him there outside, without changing something due to injury. The 49ers, Jimmy Ward, safety, corner, slot corner. His entire career with the 49ers, we kept moving that dude all over the place, and he could never really settle in. And when he finally did, he turned out to be a really excellent safety because we finally put him in a position to succeed. On the flip side to that, I think that the Dallas Cowboys have taken a lot of the value away from Micah Parsons by making him a player with his hand in the dirt 100% of the time. And I know Micah wants it because sacks are what gets you paid, not coverage in the middle of the field. But a player like Cooper, where you can line him up, I just see him lined up in the slot and blitzing the corner, right? Coming up and run stopping, and then kicking back out and guarding, a really, really good wide receiver. I just think there's so much that you can do with him. And instead of thinking he's only going to be good at everything or good at a couple things, I think he could be good at everything on the field. And to me, why would you not want a player like that? Why would you not want to take a piece that's dynamic and explosive like that and just give him the opportunity to play football?
Yeah. And I could see it again. We're talking about the third best position group. You can mix guys up 1 through 5, and there's going to be an argument for every single one of these guys, I think, at 1, genuinely. And I know even with my 6 through 10, you had a funny look with, Cam Hart. I know some people are going to have a funny look with, Mike S from Michigan. Some guys are going to have a problem with him. Jarrian Jones, I know he's flying up boards a little bit too, but some guys are going to have issues with that. And then other guys like Kamari Lassiter dropping out my top 10 for guys like Cam Hart. So I think this is a corner class you're going to find a lot of depth with. It's not just the superstars at the top, those top 5, 6, 7 guys. I think you're looking at guys that are going to fit a role somewhere in the NFL, and they're going to play extremely well.
And I didn't give you that look because of Cam Hart. I gave you that look because I thought you were going to say Max Melton. It was a lack of Max and not an addition of Cam.
Yeah, let's do I have Max Melton? I don't know if I actually watched Max.
Do you think that you can do like 3 or 4 minutes of why you love Cam Hart to give me a second to run off and play with my Traeger?
Sure, if you want to go run off. Damn, it's that time already?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it definitely is. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll be right back.
Fire off some stuff. So just to put it in perspective, just looking at PFF itself, Cam Hart is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 to like 20th ranked corner. And I know it's going to be a surprise for a lot of people. And sometimes when it comes to some of these corners and some of the players in general, I have a time where I just watch a guy and I go, damn, he's just locking up his side of the field. His start and stop ability is okay. Given his size, it's fine. He's 6'2", 207 pounds. So he's a bigger corner, right? The ideal size, some would say. So start and stop ability is okay. That's something that you can't really teach too much unless you're going to go ahead and you're doing it more off of instincts more than anything else. So I think that's something that he could improve on. Definitely. His acceleration isn't something that's just bam in your face. So he's probably going to need a single high safety to help him out a lot of the times over the top. His long speed is a concern, but again, when it comes to some of these faster guys in the NFL, you're going to have a safety over the top to help out with some of these speedy guys over the top. CeeDee Lamb, Tyreek Hill, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson. You have help with a lot of these guys. So are you going to stick him on an island? No, you're probably not going to. He's my 8th ranked corner, right? He's not my 1, 2, 3, 4. He's not gonna sit there, but he's super competitive. He has a good feel in spacing, and off coverage in zone, and he great in the run defense. He's great in screens, especially. He's good at recognizing them and really blowing through a block to try to make that tackle. He likes to make those low blocks a lot of times where you see corners kind of like dive down and kind of reach the arm out to trip out the running back or the tight end on a tight end screen. He does that a lot of the times. And again, he has the size to compete and to learn, and he has the length too. especially affecting the catch point. He's really good there. So it's one of those things where I could see why people don't like him. I definitely can see it, but this is one of those things where I'm going to look at you and say, hey, stop what you're doing. Go watch Cam Hart. It's a guy that maybe a lot of guys have not watched. A lot of people are going to watch Max Melton, like he just mentioned. Max Melton is a guy who's flown up a bunch of boards. I haven't got around to him yet, but even Renardo Green, I haven't got around to quite yet. DJ James, I haven't got around to quite yet. Jarvis Brownlee Jr., but these are all guys ranked in the like top 150-ish range, and I really do top 100 to 200. Kind of depends on the year and what I'm doing. So I'm probably going to get to 150 so I can really do about 3 to 4 rounds is kind of my goal, is where I want to be at. So I'll get around to some of those guys, and maybe my rankings will change a little bit, but I'm pretty solidified on those guys. I feel really confident about 9 through 1. Jerian Jones, I think, is really impressive. Slot corner. Again, Cam Hart, Ennis Rakestraw Jr., and then Mike Sanderstrill. Another guy who's, I think, is locked down in that slot corner position. He's not going to get drafted super high because he is just a slot. He's not an all-around player. And I did see Cooper DeJean is probably more of a slot guy in the NFL, but Mike is like primarily a slot. You're not going to see Mike on the outside. He very rarely played slot at Michigan, pulling up how often he played in the slot. Or excuse me, on the outside. So last year he played 151 snaps on the outside and then 403 snaps on the inside, 100 snaps in the box. So he's really not playing. He came off the line a little bit, the D line, do the run blitzing, but I think he's really impressive, especially in a zone scheme.
I don't think so.
Back. See, and then Drew just comes back and fucks it all up.
I don't even know what you said. Zone schemes, impressive. Did I seem cloudy? Oh, there we go. Shout out. I'm back. Wow, high definition. What's up?
Let's move from corners to quarterbacks.
Oh, yeah, this is going to be fun.
All right, here we go. All right, get them out now. Go ahead and just pull up the comment section. First of all, like the video. Appreciate it. Leave a comment. You're a fucking idiot. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. And I probably don't. That's fine.
How thick are your glasses, bro?
The hardest position to actually project on how good somebody is going to be, and how it's very difficult to scout out some of these guys. Everybody wants to be an armchair quarterback, and I find quarterbacks not really be the funnest position to watch, in my opinion. So before we get into it, here's how I watch quarterbacks. They're the first position I watch, and there's a good reason for that. When I'm watching quarterbacks, I'm watching obviously not just for the accuracy and where they attack the field. I'm looking for like throwing motion. I'm looking at his feet. I'm looking at his pocket presence. I'm looking at, with all the other things, but I want to look at him, his mechanics. How does he look? Does he look comfortable? How does his feet look? How does his hands look? I look at all that stuff. But then there's a good reason why I don't watch them later on. Because then I get to watch the wide receivers. I get to watch Tez Walker. So I get to watch Drake May's accuracy again. I get to watch Brian Thomas Jr. and Malik Neighbors. So I get to watch Jaden Daniels' accuracy again, or where he attacks the field, or where he is impressive or not impressive. I get to watch all of it again. That's why I do it this way. So started off, I have one guy who's missed my top 5, and no one's going to like it. My number 6 is Jaden Daniels. You just gonna let it marinate for a while? Are you letting people type it out first?
Hold on, let me fix this here.
Okay. Oh man, what do we? We're waiting on Drew.
Sorry, I had to comment on this. YouTube. This guy just said Jaden Daniels was the. I had to call
hey,
him.
Dude, I'm telling you, I'm sorry.
Call him an idiot.
I'm sorry, dude. I'm telling you, it's I don't want to get into negatives about a guy too much. I think the guys 6 through 1 are probably going to end up as starting quarterbacks at one time or another in their career. Jane Daniels has 1 year of high level production on a team that has a lot around him. And I will say this, I'm skeptical with a guy who has a lot of talent around him that I just don't see a whole lot out of. And I'm wrong sometimes, especially last year. I was concerned about CJ Stroud, all the wide receiver talent, all the offensive tackle talent, all the offensive lineman talent, all around the guy. I just wasn't sure if he was that impressive.
So is it the 71% completion rating?
You could pull up the numbers. It's just what I see on film.
Is it the 143.7 passer rating?
That's fine.
You're also touchdowns to 4 interceptions that bothers you?
You also have high-level college offensive linemen. You also have 2 first-round wide receivers you're throwing to right now. So people hype up.
So do all the other guys.
See his arm talent. Drake May doesn't. And Caleb Williams doesn't either. I mean, Brendan Rice, cool. Congrats. I like the running back a lot. Spoiler alert. People hype up Jaden Daniels' arm. I think he has good arcing accuracy, but his velocity is not that great at all. I don't see, he doesn't put a zip on the ball. We're not talking about arm. People hype it up like he's Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes' arm strength, and it's just not. He's not Caleb Williams' arm strength. He's not there. The velocity is just, it's fine. It's good. It's a good level to be at. Again, the one level of the high level production. I don't think his accuracy is really that great. His pocket presence isn't fantastic, which a lot of running quarterbacks, their pocket presence isn't great, especially being young. They panic and they have the ability to, rely on that running game. But then in the running game, when he's running around, he takes these massive fucking hits and he's getting his fucking head blown off. It's just, we saw it with Anthony Richardson. He lasted a game and a half, and he gets his shit rocked like 3 times in a couple of games. It just, I'm not.
It's not Jane Daniels' fault that Anthony Richardson is soft.
Yes, but dude, I mean, and he doesn't see a problem with it. When he's asked about it, he doesn't really see an issue with the way he's playing. He's like, sure, I should take some less hits, but the way I play is fine. Dude, you need to slide. You need, there's a reason why Lamar Jackson has been healthy, so healthy in this career where he's running around, right? He's one of the most, if not the most prolific running quarterback that we've seen, especially since Mike Vick, but maybe ever. But he doesn't take hits. He just doesn't. You see him, he runs out of bounds. He takes a slide early. Of course, we see him do the crazy shit where he fucking spins off of 2 Bengals defenders and he runs down the fucking field and he's crazy. He jukes 2 Bills defenders. Matt Milano's end up on his knees. We see it, but that's all fine and dandy. But what you don't see is him taking the slide early, running out of bounds, not taking the hits. Jaden Daniels wants that extra yard. Well, bro, you're not Josh Allen. You're not built like that. You're not that big. You're not that built. You're not muscular like a Josh Allen. So I know that there's a lot with Jaden Daniels to like. I just and I want to believe in some of the guys that are a little bit in front of him.
Yeah, see, I think that you're doing the NFL scout mistake. I think like a player like, You're falling in love with Drake May's big arm potential, but the fact of the matter is his ball placement absolutely is fucking terrible. And there's been plenty of quarterbacks that have come into the NFL that have had massive arms and their ball placement sucks. You can't do anything with them. Sure. I love the fact that he only threw 4 interceptions last year. His completion rating is really high. He didn't throw any interceptions the year before that, and his completion rating was really, really high. Frankly, I'll take an accurate quarterback over big arm talent every single day of the week. Brock Purdy versus Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold has a freaking cannon, and he's never been able to be successful in the NFL in any of his stops. So now, of course, we are talking about the top 6 quarterbacks in the entire draft class, which we had a shitty draft class in 2022, and we had a shitty draft class in 2023. So 2023, was that 21? Wow, I'm getting old. I've been covering the draft for like 3 years, and it's already just like. Anyways, it's been a while since we've had a good draft class for quarterbacks, and frankly, it's going to come down to where these players get drafted. There's a couple teams that I really love Jaden Daniels on. There's a couple teams that I don't like him on. You and me had the conversation a couple weeks back on, depending on which team drafts him, as if I would start him right away. I think he's going to be successful. and you need to put a clip out on this. I think Jaden Daniels is going to be an extremely successful quarterback. So let's get that published somewhere so we can come back and talk about Christian Watson 3 years from now and how I was right. And now that's not saying that I'm not making any implications here on Drake May, but Jaden Daniels is my number 4.
Okay.
So obviously I believe in others over him as well. So I'm not sitting here. People are hating on the 72% completion rating and 40 touchdowns and 4 interceptions way too much. And all of his stats were better than Caleb Williams. So there's not anything that Caleb Williams did statistically advanced or standard better than Jaden Daniels last year.
Yeah. Who's your 5?
Michael Penix.
Okay. I have JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I just think that
it's really hard not to get negative about quarterbacks. I think it's funny because I'm like looking at these guys and I'm like, I really don't like this. I'm like, fuck, I'm being really negative about these quarterbacks right now.
Well, it's because the bus factor is so high. And the thing about it is it's so easy to move off quarterbacks now. And people don't ever think about this. People do not understand this, and they're simple-minded. They don't understand. They're not signing Caleb Williams to a Sam Bradford level 5-year, $300 million contract. Yeah. He gets the rookie scale contract. So if it doesn't work out, you can move off of him. You could trade Trey Lance, Mac Jones, Justin Fields.
Yep.
Shit. If somebody would take him, they would have traded Zach Wilson. And Trevor Lawrence might be a bust. That dude, he's got a massive season in front of him this year to prove himself. You can trade these guys. You can move off of these guys. It wasn't like that before the rookie scale was, so sure. The bus factor is extremely high on these guys. It really, really, and unfortunately, the reason for that is because when you're drafted high as a quarterback, you're going to a shitty team most of the time. Caleb Williams being drafted to the Bears with the talent they've added and the defense they've had has to be one of the best opportunities for, a top 3 draft pick outside of Trey Lance in a really, really long time. And all this smoke about, Caleb's not going to want to go to the NFL. He doesn't want to go play in Chicago. Why not? Chicago looks like they're going to be really freaking good if Caleb is worth a shit. So I got Penix at 5. I got Jaden Daniels at 4. And since you already mentioned him, I have JJ McCarthy at 3.
Okay. I'll fire off my 5, 4, and 3. JJ is my 5. I have Bo Nix at my 4, and I have Michael Penix at my 3. That's fine. So the issue with JJ is he has a decent amount of college experience, but he's not asked to throw the ball that often and really be a focal point of the offense. And when you're going to the NFL, especially now that you're getting talks of going top 4 or 5, you're going to be asked to go to the focal point of an offense. You are it. You are going to be commanding everything. And sure, we could say he has good leadership and he's a winner, whatever. You're betting on the intangibles. But the problem is what I have with JJ McCarthy is the intangibles are good. They're not great or elite, right? When you're betting on certain intangibles with some of the guys in the past, you're looking at guys who do have really good. Even in this draft, you're looking at guys like, Drake May and Caleb Williams, have really, really good traits and intangibles. Elite level, but JJ McCarthy just isn't on that level. But his throwing motion's really clean. It's really good. His arm talent's fine. It's okay. But he's also needs to put on a little bit of weight. He's slender. He's close to the of Jaden Daniels slender, so he could put on a little bit more weight, hit the weight room a little bit, and then get that arm a little bit stronger, and then makes him a little bit more valuable moving forward. His mobility is a little bit better than people give him credit for. So I think that's an understated part of his game.
But you just made the point as to why JJ McCarthy should be in front of Bo Nix. He needs to put on weight and he needs to bulk up. He has no mechanic issues. Bo Nix's mechanics are all over the place. Like his feet don't make sense. They're sloppy. He doesn't climb the pocket. He fades off on his throws. And frankly, he's a first read passer. I'm not saying that Bo Nix can't get to his 3rd and 4th read in a progression. I'm just saying he doesn't have to, and he's never proven the ability to be able to. Maybe he can. I don't know. It's a big question mark. His like I said, his feet are a little wonky. His upper body's a little wonky. He fades off on throws when he doesn't have to. For me, when you're noisy in the pocket, When you look uncomfortable in the pocket, he looks like he's seeing ghosts sometimes, which is weird for a player that goes first read and doesn't have to get through his progressions too often. Yeah. Now, Bo Nix's statistics and everything are phenomenal. We're talking about a 76 or 77% completion rating. He throws a shit ton of touchdowns. He might be uber successful. But when you have mechanics,
really low.
What was that?
His ADOT is really low.
Oh, absolutely. First read and get it out. I'm 100% with you. Jimmy Garoppolo. So, but Jimmy Garoppolo went to Super Bowl. If you surround the quarterback with the right talent, you can be successful. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bo Nix is a really good quarterback because stuff like that can be coached. But if you're telling me JJ McCarthy needs to get in the weight room and build a strong arm and Bo Nix has to fix his mechanics, I'm taking JJ McCarthy every single time.
Sure. I think it's not as like we're not talking about leagues ahead of each other type situation, right?
We're talking top 5, right?
Yeah, I think I mean I'm throwing Jayden Daniels there. I think how close for me 6, 5, and 4 are to each other is like I like maybe I like the experience of one guy more than the other. Sure, yes, he needs to marry his lower body and his upper body mechanics together, and his feet need to be a little bit more cleaner in the pocket. Absolutely. And yeah, he might just be a really good game manager, and that might be what it is. But also, maybe I'm valuing the experience, and I know where the floor of Bo Nix is going to be over where the potential of where JJ McCarthy and Jayden Daniels could be. Maybe that's what I'm doing here. It's most likely what I'm doing here. So, I think that how close 4, 5, and 6 for me is, it's a lot closer than how far maybe we're making it out to be. 3 is Michael Penix. I think the biggest problem with Michael Penix is he has really long fucking arms. It's insane. His throwing motion does not look that weird. Go look up videos of his mirrored, and it looks like he's throwing with his right arm instead of his left arm, and it looks pretty normal. It's really not that weird. The problem with his throwing motion is it's the windup. He has a long windup, and he has a cannon of an arm, and the problem is sometimes he puts a little bit too much on that, and he sacrifices the accuracy a little bit with how hard he's throwing that ball. But I like his ball placement. His deep accuracy is really impressive. He gets it's another guy who has a lot of talent around him. I'm not gonna look past that. It's another guy who has 3 potential NFL wide receivers: Jalen McMillan, Polk, and obviously Romo Dunze. And then obviously you have offensive line talent around you. So there's a lot of talent. Michael Penix. It's just watching him by himself. I like the ball placement. I like his reads. The problem is he's sacrificing the accuracy with throwing it as hard as he fucking can. That's my biggest issues with Penix.
Yeah, Michael Penix, obviously I put him 5th. I am a little concerned about the fact that he uses his arm talent to cover the gaps in mechanics and a couple other things too often, because at the NFL level, those completions become interceptions very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Defensive linemen are massive. You have to find the windows. You have to find the throwing angles. You have to find the correct ball placement, or you're not going to be successful at the next level.
Sure.
A lot of what I just said applies to number 2, assuming you don't have Drake May at number 1, like a fucking weirdo. Drake May has got a massive arm. He takes a shit ton of sacks.
Yeah.
His ball placement is whack, and he uses his natural talent to make up for deficiencies in his game. That being said, we're talking about a guy that if you take a very, very deep dive into the 2, you could make a conversation about why he should go number 1 instead of Caleb Williams. Mm-hmm. And this might just be a conversation a couple years down the line where it was just like, yeah, dude, he has a massive cannon. He's mobile. Which is probably why he takes the sacks, and he just had to work on the arm placement. So Drake May is really I'm much more interested in Drake May and what happens with him than I am with Caleb Williams, because I think he's going to be successful because of the team from the jump. Sure. I just think, ball placement in the NFL is very, very important. That's why I keep hammering home completion rating and this and that and the other, because you have to be able to put the ball in a position for your players to succeed. And that'll be a thing that Drake May needs to accomplish to the next level, especially considering, college, who he played. There's question marks there. So,
sure, I'm not gonna gonna disagree with you on some of the stuff. I know you're hammering home about the the ball placement stuff. I didn't see the ball placement stuff as much as you did. I definitely saw some of it, but he also put the ball in places I don't see some of the other quarterbacks doing. Outside of maybe Caleb Williams, he's just some of the ball placement. Yeah, sure. He misses the easy throws where you're like, "What the fuck are you doing, bro? Your feet are set in the pocket. Your mechanics are perfect. The guy's wide open on a end breaking route, and you just missed him. The ball's just behind him, right? I get it, totally understand. But I didn't see it as much as you did. The main issue I saw is people always want to say Caleb Williams is big game hunting. I see it more in Drake May more than Caleb Williams. Drake May wanted that big play every single time. There was times where I would be like, dude, you have a wide open guy right in front of you, and you're saying, fuck that. I'm throwing it into double coverage, because I want to try to fit the ball in the tight window. I saw more with him than I saw on Caleb, but I really like Drake May. I really did. Yes, the arm is really good, but also, like I said, I saw more better accuracy than I saw inaccuracies. Sure, his completion percentage isn't fantastic, but his adjusted's like 75%, which accounts for drops and the wide receivers being fucking dog shit. And he doesn't have a whole lot of talent around him. And I really liked what I saw out of him. I don't think the stage is going to be too bright for him. His background is his brother is Luke May, who is like an NCAA, hit a huge game winner a couple years ago. His dad played at UNC, played for quarterback. His mom was like a track athlete or something like that. His brother plays baseball for UNC. So, and I know he's a prospect. So there's a lot of lights on the May family in North Carolina. And I don't think the lights are going to be too bright for him. I do obviously want to see a lot of developmental aspects out of Drake May, especially with reading the full length of the field and not going big game hunting, because there's a good chance he's going to go to a team that doesn't have a whole lot of talent around him, especially if he goes to a place like New England. He's going to have a hard time. Now, if Minnesota comes up and they end up taking Drake May instead, he should be thanking God that he's going there instead of New England. So, and then obviously Caleb is our the undisputed one, right?
Yeah. Caleb balled out every single week. And unfortunately for him and his team, the defense was absolutely terrible. Yep. And he had to put up 40 to 50 points a week to try to win. And he knew that coming out, and that just affects your decision making when that you have to make it happen for your team to win. So, some of his incompletion, his completion rating, interception, stuff like that is just really a byproduct of him trying to win and knowing that he has to will his team to a win.
Yep.
And there really wasn't some of Drake May's worst games last year were against some of the better teams he played, which is kind of unfortunate when you're talking about North Carolina and the schedule they keep. I mean, Caleb popped week in and week out. And I know there were some throws, there were some incompletions, and I know there was the criticism about him and painting shit on his fingernails, but frankly, I don't give a crap about any of that stuff. The kid is a star.
Yeah.
He's probably the highest herald quarterback prospect since Burrow, probably. And I don't think anyone is going to be surprised when he's really, really successful.
Yeah.
Which is about time. It's been a while since we've had a really, really good number one pick quarterback. So,
hey, the Bears are finally going to have a 3,000 yard passer. So we're finally going to see it. Man, let's move off of the quarterbacks. Edge rushers.
Yep.
I have a 10 through 6. My 10 is Gabe Murphy. My 9 is Adisa Isaac. My 8 is Marshawn Nealon. My 7 is Jono Ellis. And my 6 is Chris Braswell.
Oh, damn.
What?
I got Chris Braswell at 5. I was like, we're finally at lockstep on something, but you ruined it at the end.
Just missed it.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, talk about Chris.
I hate this edge class. Can we throw that out there? It's really just pedigree. You're talking about a senior
depth. I think that's what you're talking about for this edge class. It's a depth class more than superstars.
Yeah, I shouldn't say it sucks. That's not
That's why it's fifth ranked over the other ones because it's so many. It's a deep class, but they're not like a deep superstar class like wide receivers and corners.
Yeah, I mean, and like I was saying, you're talking about a senior. You're talking about Alabama. You're talking about super strong. You're talking about very, very explosive, fast hands. You're talking about all the things you want on an edge rusher. And then when you're talking about his cons, the things that they talk about is, oh, he has this thing, but it could be cleaned up, or oh, he has this thing, but it can be coached up. Oh, he has this thing, he's stiff, or his hand is inconsistent, or he has a false step, and all that stuff is, as I've talked about, stuff that's going to be cleaned up with coaching. And we're not talking about a quarterback reworking his mechanics. That's extremely hard. But a pass rusher eliminating a false step he may or may not have is something that could be coached up in an offseason. Yeah. So I'm super excited for him. Although I'm kind of curious to hear your list now because I thought I was pretty locked in on these 5. So
my 5 is Darius Robinson.
Damn. Okay. Sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
I think I like the explosiveness with the power with Darius Robinson. Mm-hmm. More than some of the stuff I saw with Chris Braswell. And obviously there's some questions of him being like overshadowed year after year after year after year in Alabama, which is going to happen obviously. But when it comes to Darius Robinson, the length is a big plus. His bull rush is really good. And his biggest con is his bend. He can get around the bend sometimes, and he does have that ability. He just has to use the right techniques too. When he's really using, like, he gets inside. What I've noticed, he gets inside of the tackle, and then he'll kind of like pull off of him. When he pulls off, he can bend around just that little bit. He just needs a little bit of edge to do it. It doesn't really take a whole lot for him to get that pull away. So even with his bend being the biggest problem and his first step explosiveness isn't fantastic, because we do have another guy who's going to be in the top 5 who has great power, but he's more explosive and he really just hits you in the chest like a MMA, fighter kicking you in the chest, type situation. So Darius is my 5. He slightly just beats out Chris Braswell, but I'm pretty locked in on the 4 through 1. I've swapped it around a little bit. Yeah.
Darius, for me, the only reason why he did not make my top 5 is I find speed and explosiveness more to my liking for a pass rusher as opposed to the bull rush and everything like that, because I just think that I think it's easier for an offensive scheme to negate. You can't turn the corner on Micah, right? Like, he's going to get there.
Yep.
You can turn the corner on some of these bigger bull rusher edges. And again, we're nitpicking at the 5th or 6th best edge rusher in the entire class. So it's not meant to be this massive problem for him. He's going to be really successful, I think. That's just where the 5th and 6th coincide with me.
Yeah, no, we're going to have an explosive guy inside of our top 5. I'm curious on where he goes. Is 4 where he is? Who's your 4?
Chop.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. We're in the same place then. Shit, we might be in the same place actually. 4 through 1. Okay. Yeah. Chop. I think all the same stuff that's always said about Chop is exactly what we're gonna say, right? Super explosive first step. The thing is he has a lack of length, right? He's a little bit of a smaller guy, and his arm length isn't crazy. He doesn't have a lot of counters and doesn't have a lot of moves. He relies on that first step explosiveness a lot. And with him being a superior athlete to a lot of the guys in college, obviously he's an NFL, potentially first round caliber type athlete. He's going to beat a lot of guys on that athleticism, and he relied on it a lot. So he's not really a technician with any of his moves. And anytime he does the first move, he doesn't counter it. He doesn't have a second move. He doesn't have a move to beat whatever the offensive tackle is doing to him. So he gets locked up, and he's not going to be a presence in the run defense. I think that's just where he's at right now. But the potential of Chop is sky high if you can coach him up a little bit. How do you see
everything? Chop? Everything you just mentioned is coaching, hand placement, false steps, things like 4, that.
Right?
If he
8.
Yeah, if he can get coached up, and he's climbed, you know what I'm saying? The combine did wonders for him. I'm not going to lie. And I told myself I wasn't going to put anybody up because of combine. I told myself I wasn't going to do that this year, but it's hard to ignore the just absolute explosive nature of him as a player and when you're talking about edge rushers, I'll take the guy who has all the tools and he needs the coaching. He needs the technical ability. I'll take that every day of the week.
Yeah.
Now we'll see how this goes. Who you got at 3?
I think 3 through 1 could be, there's an argument for every single one. My 3 is a lot of people's 1s, and it's Dallas Turner.
Okay.
I text you after the I was watching a little bit of the film. It wasn't right after. I think I texted you and then got in my car. So I think I was watching the film the night before and it popped in my head. So I texted you. So what's the deal with Dallas Turner? He's has really good arm length, really good change of direction, and he's a true outside 3-4 linebacker that I think has some ability in the coverage game that he shouldn't just be relegated to just the pass rushing, right? We see TJ Watt dropping coverage every once in a while, and it's something that you go, oh shit, yeah, he dropped in coverage, he wasn't rushing. So he's good speed too, and he's explosive. But I like 2 and 1 more than Turner. The hands are fast. The placement's inconsistent though. He doesn't get inside the tackle's chest, and he doesn't get good leverage on him all the time. So not what you would expect for the first edge rusher coming off of the board. But again, it's that potential that's going to fly him up and make him go, first off the board for edge rushers, potentially to, the Falcons or the Bears or whoever's inside that top 10, selecting the first defensive player off the board. So I get it. I just like 2 and 1 a little bit more. Who's your 3?
Dallas Turner.
Okay.
Which is weird because I think he's going to be the best. He's going to be the first edge off the board.
Yeah, I do too.
I don't disagree with anything that you said. It just really comes down to like you put on Jared Verse and you put on Dallas Turner and you're looking at Jared Verse and you're like, holy fuck, that man is powerful. He's strong. He's dominant. He's just like, rawr, you know what I mean? And then you look at Dallas Turner and it's like, how you see an edge rusher like come at the offensive lineman and he's kind of like dancing, like trying to find out like Dallas Turner to me needs to be a little bit more consistent with his violence, I guess.
I just realized
what
Dallas Turner is Jason Tatum because he forgets he's fucking 6'8" and he can drive to the basket. Dallas Turner forgets he has good length and he could be powerful. He just doesn't attack the tackle. Dallas Turner is fucking Jason Tatum.
Yeah, Dallas Turner needs to get more violent, which is when you're talking about. Well, before I go to here, who's number 2?
Jared Verse.
Okay, before I get into my number 2, Jared Verse. Every draft pile violent. Whether it's he's a violent player or he has violent hands or he has a violent explosive first step or he can do the swim move and he can do the bend and he can do all this other stuff. And then you talk about him as his cons. And I think I was looking at PFF and they were like, he doesn't rush the passer. He's not as strong from a stand-up stance versus his hand in the dirt. I'm like, okay, so put your fucking hand in the dirt. And his lateral movement is a little stiff. I'm like, okay, we're talking about an edge rusher that's being taught every play to get downhill, and he's uncomfortable moving laterally. Coaching. Like to me, I don't know. I guess the Dallas Turner stuff, maybe it's Alabama, maybe that's what it is. But I think Jared Verse is clearly in front of him.
I think, and I know you don't like comps very much either. And really, I can only give comps out to
especially when they're NBA players.
I don't like to give comps out very often either. But when I do, it's going to be people that I watch very often and somebody I watch very, very, very often. And I think Jared Verse is going to have a very, very, very long career like this man. He reminds me a lot of, and you might not like it, reminds me a lot of DeMarcus Lawrence. He's powerful. I think he could be impactful in the run game. I don't think we're going to see Jared Verse as like a double-digit sack guy every single year. I don't think that's going to be something that's going to be in his cards all of the time. But I think it's going to be a guy who's going to impact the running game in the most important and crucial times. And I also think he's still going to go ahead and he's going to pick up a lot of those sacks as well. So he could be a double-digit sack guy early in his career, but I think he's going to go ahead and wane it down a little bit later on, kind of like a D-Law. but I really like him. I really like Jared Verse. Everything, we were already talking about, powerful speed to power moves. He's, especially when he gets his hands inside of you, it's, he can almost drive that tackle into the quarterback just directly, just tackle both of them. Fuck it.
I agree 100% on the D-Law. I was thinking D-Law from New York, but yeah, I'm 100%. And I know D-Law, I know Dexter, he gets kicked inside a lot, and I don't exactly think that's where Jared Verse is going to be super successful at, but just the violence of the player and the way they play the position. I think that there's going to be a team that looks up at the board and Jared Verse is sitting there and they're like, oh, okay. Like we have this need at corner or we have this need at offensive tackle. But no, yeah, come on down. And then we're going to do this thing next year. We're like, well, how the hell did Jared Verse fall to 19 or 23 or whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
And I know you probably wouldn't be super excited to see the Cowboys take a defensive lineman, but I mean, when talent falls to you, it's just one of those things you kind of got to take what you're given there. So,
yeah,
I'm glad this shook out this way because I don't think a lot of people have this guy at number 1. And I think this is one of these things where just like we had Rome at number 2 in the wide receiver rankings, I think a lot of people are going to be kind of like, what the hell do you mean Latu at number 1? But suck it.
Yep. Laiatu Latu, number 1. I don't care what people say about, his athleticism is fine. He's okay. It's like, you could say whatever the hell you want, but the testing proves that he's a good athlete. He's not just like an okay athlete. He's not just always fine. He's a good athlete, better than a lot of people thought he was going to end up testing as, especially with some of his cone drills and he's a lot better than, his arm length is like, his length is okay. Sure. Congratulations. But you know what he does to adequately make up for that, his hand placement, what he does with his hands, what he does with his body. He's a technician with how he plays the defensive end position. And I think he could be successful in a 4-3 or a 3-4, not standing up exactly, but I think wherever you put him, he's going to be fine. I think he's a scheme transcendent type player because he's so quick with everything he does. I don't know if you saw the interview with him getting interviewed, and when guys are usually asked, what are your moves? What do you do on the defensive line? A lot of the guys don't give out their moves, right? Latu just laid it all out. He's like, listen, here's what I do. I do this or I do this. If this doesn't work, then I'll do this and this and this. Because he knows he has so many first moves that if that first move doesn't work, his counter, something's going to work. Because he knows with the type of tackles that he's playing against, he does his film, he does his research, that if that first move isn't going to work, okay, how does the tackle usually counter that? And I'm going to counter that move, and I'm going to keep that in my back pocket constantly because he does it all. He's not going to show up a ton in the run game, sure. But I think Laiatu Latu is like a double-digit sack guy every single year. It might not be 16, 17, 18 sacks, but I think he's going to sit somewhere around that 10-sack range every year. And I think he's just going to be Mr. Consistency from day one. He's an NFL-ready edge rusher, and unlike we were talking about with all these other guys with coaching, this is a guy who is ready to go today, right now.
The thing I love about Latu is if you turn on tape of him 3 different games, you're watching him be extremely successful 3 different ways. Yes. Like you mentioned, multiple first moves, I've heard some criticism of him in the run game, holding the line of scrimmage, but every time I turn on the tape, the dude's shooting the gaps and making run stops in the backfield, and that's okay. Yeah. We'll take that. Dallas Turner keeps getting mocked to number 8 with the Falcons. Again, I think that might just be an Alabama versus UCLA bias, and like the biggest cons I see about this guy, and again, going to multiple big boards to look at cons, just to see if I can come up with something, is just like, oh, he's adequate at this. Oh, he's good. He's okay at this. Oh, he's proficient at this. I'm like, okay, we put that on the con line for what reason? Like, hey, he's just okay with numbers 3, 4, 5, and 6, but he's elite at 1, 2, and 3. Like, okay, well, what's he bad at? Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's just put him in a position to succeed. I don't know if I like the idea of him standing up as an outside linebacker versus, you know what I mean, as you mentioned, but he does definitely seem to be versatile. And when you have a player that can win in multiple different ways, I don't think that you should put him in his hand in the dirt a la Micah Parsons. Like, give him the ability to move around. I just honestly love when you have your, TJ Watt. He's on this side, and now he's on this side, and now he's up the middle, and he's doing all this other shit. And it's just like, holy hell, how do you game plan for this? He's all over the place.
It makes it hard to scheme against. Yeah, definitely.
Not that I'm saying Latu is going to be TJ Watt. Relax. I'm just saying the versatility is a big plus.
Yeah, for sure. Interior defensive lineman. This is the point right here. Looking down at my list, this is the point right here where I get weird. I have a lot. I have a lot of not super chalk takes and watching film. It starts here. So I don't have a 10 through 6. I have an 8 through 6 for my interior defensive lineman.
Okay.
8 is Brandon Dorless, which I know he's hard to kind of put around. I know sometimes he's an interior defensive lineman. Sometimes he's an edge rusher. It really depends on how much he fucking weighs because he can't decide. 7 is Chris Jenkins, which I know a lot of people have him pretty high. 6 is a guy I think is going to break your top 5. And I was surprised he didn't break mine. But I think he's a little bit too scheme dependent. And my 6 is T'Vondre Sweat.
Okay.
Who's your 5?
DUI notwithstanding.
What?
Didn't he just get a DUI?
Yeah, he did.
Falling down the draft boards.
It was like that before, I promise.
Number 5 is the guy from Clemson. I'm not going to say his name. You can.
Rook Orohoro.
Orohoro. Yeah. There you go.
This is where it gets weird, right? That's what I said.
Do you have him?
Rook's my 3.
Okay. Well, give me one reason why you have him so highly ranked, and I'll see if I agree.
Super strong. He can line up anywhere on the defensive line. Truly anywhere on the defensive line.
Yeah, he's nose tackle, 3 tech, 5 tech, whatever you want him to be. Yes,
I think he has really good upper body strength. If he could gain a little bit more on his lower body strength without losing his athleticism, because I think he relies a little bit too much on it. I think we're talking about a really good bull rush guy who can. He can put pressure on that interior of that pocket and make that pocket collapse a little bit in more. I think he's fine as a run defender, which I think some people are going to be, interior defensive linemen. They're supposed to be stopping the run a lot of the times. He's good. He's sound. He's fine. But he's really good at stunts and crashes because he's so quick with this athleticism as an interior defensive lineman. You can have him lined up like on the outside and have him stunt on the inside. And he's so quick that he could still get there and make an impact on the interior of that pocket. Obviously, depending on how fast that quarterback gets the ball out, but he could still make an impact for sure. I think his biggest things is he relies a little bit too much on the athleticism, and everybody in the NFL is really fucking athletic. So I think there's that issue. And his change of direction is not fantastic, which is funny. He has a little bit of issues, not with the inside run schemes, but when we're talking about like tosses and sweeps, he has some issues kind of getting around to that and changing his direction.
Getting washed out a little bit. Yep.
That's where he has his problems. But on the pass rush side and on those interior run plays, he's an impact player. And, with him being so versatile, if you line him up on the outside, he can still make an impact if that play comes directly to him. He might be able to make a play happen. You might have a sweep going to the right and you see Rook Orohoro on the outside and you're like, fuck, well, I wasn't expecting that. He wasn't supposed to be there. So I think he's an impact player on anywhere on the defensive line.
Yeah, I love the stunt ability, especially at a nose tackle or 3 tech position. And I love the fact that although I do think he requires coaching, he's technically sound. I like the fact that he's he keeps his body square and all these other things that, I've spent the last couple of seasons watching Javon Kinlaw get absolutely brutalized on the defense, on the line of scrimmage, because he gets sideways and he gets pushed out and he gets washed out of plays because he's not in position. And just watching him on tape, just squared up to the line of scrimmage, squared up to the ball carrier. I'm like, okay, that guy could plug in on the 49ers defensive line tomorrow and be successful.
He's just holding the line. He's not doing anything impressive. He's not stopping anything, but he's leaving gaps open for other guys to make that play for sure.
Correct.
Yeah. So he's my 3.
So who do you have at 5?
Michael Hall Jr.
Ooh. Okay. Why?
Gap shooter is kind of where I have him. His biggest issues is his lower body strength. He doesn't have a whole lot of it, and I don't think his hand placement's fantastic. So he's not getting on the inside of a lot of guards and centers. He's not really getting inside of them, and he's playing a lot of 3 tech. He's playing a lot of guard against a lot of guards, so he's not getting inside with a lot of those guys. So I think his hand placements could use some fundamentally sound coaching. But when it comes to shooting the gaps and getting off the line really quick, I think he's up there with some of the better guys in this class. When he breaks off that line, he's in there and he's trying to shoot that gap as fast as possible. So when he's trying to shoot in that A gap, I think he's quicker than most guys, even inside my top 5. So he's good. His moves are not fantastic. He does like weird, like hop step type deals. It's like he's trying to shake off the guards. But if he could get some more leg power and really drive into the guards, I think he's a scheme situational pass rushing interior defensive lineman. T'Vondre Sweat's my 6, and he could be my 5 if you want to place him as he's only a run stopping interior defensive lineman. That's where I sit him. Both those guys, they're flip-flopped doing different things. It's just how you value them.
And that's a great point, because I do not value an interior defensive lineman that struggles to stop the run.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
But it depends who else you have there. Who's kidding who? I mean, if you have, depending on the player there. So who's your number 4 then?
It gets weird.
Now I'm confused.
Jer'Zhan Newton's my 4.
Oh, what the fuck?
Okay. I'm going to put it this way. So
I'm confused.
I am when you watch film on certain guys, and it's hard to put into words. I have a couple of things here, but it's hard to put into words on why I don't like a guy. When I'm watching him, I just don't see it. I don't see what the hype is about him being number 1 or 2 on guys' boards. I don't see it. I see a lot of great things out of Rook and my 2 and my 1. I think we probably have the same 1, but my 2 and my 1 and my 3, I think those guys are a lot of scheme versatile guys who can play all over the line and who do a lot. But when it comes to Jer'Zhan, it feels like he's a shorter, fat guy running around out there that I'm not sure what he's kind of doing. I'm really confused on what he's doing. Like he's not fast. He's not quick off the line. He holds the line well, but it's just he has a great motor. His feet.
He never stops moving. He's like Max Crosby, bro. He's not going to give up on the play. He's going to make make impact plays in the NFL because he does not give up on the play, and he never stops.
Sure, absolutely. But I also I think it's what some of the guys at 3 and 2 could be, and 1 what he is where I'm putting why I put him at 4.
I just think that all of the good things that he's good at, you can't coach. And sure. I think that coaches all over the league would take the things that he's good at in every single NFL player. Like the motor, he never stops. He just continues on. And I think Jer'Zhan Newton, for me, he's just a massive lack of flash. And I think that's why people struggle with him.
It could be. I've had a couple guys where I'm like, he's boring to fucking watch, and I don't like fucking, watching him, and he kind of sucks watching him. But, he's one of those guys that I again was bored watching him, but I just didn't see some of the stuff other guys are seeing. It's just where I'm sitting.
So I have him at 2, so we're kind of different there. I also had Sweat at 3, who you completely left off. Mm-hmm. And at 4, I have Fisk. So
Fisk is on my list.
You put Fisk at 2?
I put Fisk at 2.
Okay. I mean, hey, I don't hate it. I really like Fisk.
Yeah. I think is another guy you could place kind of all over the line. Really, truly. I don't think he's light, right? And his arm length isn't fantastic, but I think he's a smart run defender. I think that's where he's intelligent, and you could tell with him, he shifts on the line. He shifts on where he thinks the scheme is going to end up going towards, and he ends up making a play, not because of his athleticism, which is fantastic, not because of how big he is or strong he is holding the line, but because he's smart enough to put himself in the position to make a play. I think that's what separates him on the run defending. And on the pass rush stuff, put him all over the line. He's super athletic. He's super strong. Go watch all his combine shit, and it backs it all up, right? I don't double. The one thing like you see about combine stuff is you don't double things you already know. If you know Braden Fisk is already athletic, you don't double that athleticism because you see it again. And I don't think that's happening here. I really like Fisk a lot. And again, I like Rook a lot at 3. It's nothing against Jerzon Newton. It's just I like those 3, 2, and again the 1 guy a lot more. You know, I don't think Johnny Newton's gonna be a bad player. But our 1's the same, right?
Yeah, Murphy, he's one of the few we've talked about that's a 3-down player. He's effective against the run. He's effective against the pass. He's pretty good at everything.
I think I think those top 4 guys are that I mentioned are 4-down, 3-down players. You know, I think all 3 of them are. For me, Byron, Fisk, Rook, and Johnny. I think all those guys are.
Yeah, and really the only thing on Byron Murphy I've seen is they talk about his short arms, but I'm not even really sure what that means. You know, defensive linemen are closing the gap. They're bringing the contact. They're initiating the contact. So with short arms, like if you're explosive and powerful, the short arms aren't really going to hold you back. I just think, again, it's trying to find a con for a player who's really good because you have to put something on the list.
And I don't think he shows up on tape. I don't think the shorter arms show up. I think with his size, I think he's able to get the centers and guards off balance so well. He doesn't have a lot of pass rush moves, but he gets in so well that he doesn't really need a whole lot. So that's another coaching thing, but he's super strong. He's really violent. He kind of just throws guys to the side sometimes. He's tossing centers into the quarterback. He's just a guy I think is the undisputed 1. I know I've seen Jerzon Newton as the 1, but to me it's undisputedly Byron Murphy for me. You ready to get into your offensive lineman?
Yeah, it's going to start getting funky here as we get to the less valuable position, not less valuable, but just less deep positions here. Talking about centers and guards. Obviously, I think 1's going to be pretty easy, but
you do?
I guess not now. Just by you saying that.
I'm going to preface this by saying I do not have Graham Barton anywhere on my list, interior offensive lineman or tackles, and that's just because I graded him as an offensive tackle. If I'm grading him as a guard, he's showing up on the list and he's showing up in the top 5. I just don't have him here, so I'm not going to talk about him in the moment.
I put a top 5 and I put Graham Barton as a 1A.
Okay,
but I have a top 5 not including Graham Barton. So
okay. I only have a 6. I don't have a 6 through 10. Cedric Von Prawn, center out of Georgia is the only guy. So
I like Cedric Von Prawn.
My 5 is Christian Mahogany. Who's your 5? Is he higher or is he?
No, Christian Mahogany is my 4.
Okay. Who's your 5 then?
1 Cooper Beebe or Beebe. Couldn't tell you. Is it Beebe? Perfect.
Yeah. It's one of those guys I haven't got around to yet, and I've been meaning to get around to it for a little while now, and I haven't had the opportunity to get back around to the interior offensive lineman.
You want me to play the hits for you on him? 2 sacks given up. He gave up 0 hits, only 7 hurries, 460 pass rush snaps, 460 run, block attempts. Super consistent every single game he played. Just one of those things where I'm sure they'll tell you, if you look at him, they'll say he's not super athletic, but we're talking about a guard. He doesn't have to be a pulling guard. Super, super smart player. And when you're talking about offensive linemen, hand placement is awesome. So realistically, if you're fucking smart and your hand placement is good and you can pass block and run block, I honestly think that he's probably a swing tackle, maybe, or a swing lineman in the NFL. I don't think that he's landing as a premier starter, but we're also on to our 6th or 7th most deep position group in this draft, and we're talking about, the 5 or 6th guy. So consistency is key with him. He's not going to show out on tape. He's not the most athletic person you've ever seen in your life, but he's consistent.
Yeah, and it's funny, a lot of the stuff that you say about BB is I see a lot in Mahogany. He's like a below average athlete, so he's not going to be like a great puller. But I think he's intelligent. He's powerful punches. And he wants to put guys in the dirt, right? I like when interior offensive linemen are just nasty dudes, and I think Mahogany is that type of build. He doesn't use his arms, like his arm length, a lot of the times, like you think he would, and his arms could be a little bit higher than you would think. You watch all the other interior offensive linemen. You watch JPJ, Christian Haynes, Mason McCormick, and you see their hands are a little bit higher. You just see it going bang, 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 bang. Because I don't just watch like, oh, hey, let me start with the first overall ranked player, then the second. I watch like all the interior offensive line back to back to back to back to back, usually in a day or 2 day span when I'm ready to sit down and watch film. And you see it, and you get around Mahogany, his arms are like lower, and he's like kind of like tucking his elbows in almost. It's weird. It's one of those things it was kind of awkward to me. And I'm like, and you see his arm length out on PFF, like his arm length at the combine, and it's long. He has long ass arms, and he could push guys out, but he's not using them. He's like tucking his elbows in. He's kind of has his arms like a crab. It's just fucking strange. But I think he could be a lot higher than this if he kind of extended his arms out and he used his power a little bit more, like he punched guys more. It's just a little bit weird. So he's my 5.
Mahogany is another one of those players that is Mahogany is 4 for me.
That's right.
Is 5. He's another one of those players that PFF absolutely hates in the zone run game, and obviously that's what my team runs. So to me, but that doesn't. I mean, if he's an average athlete at best, pulling and the zone read stuff isn't going to be something he's super successful at. But that's okay because there's multiple different offenses in the NFL, and not everybody's good at everything. So who's your 4?
Yeah. Mason McCormick.
Okay.
Yeah. I think this is a guy that this is probably where I'm putting the actually 3 is probably where I'm putting the Graham Barton spot. If I was going to put 1, 3 or 4, I really like Mason McCormick. I think because of the smaller school, I think he's getting overlooked a little bit compared to some of the other guys that are getting a ton of attention. Oh, my dog just walks around repeatedly. He has like the ideal build, I feel like, for like an old school interior offensive lineman. If you take a look at him, I think he does really well for a guy that big and that size as a puller. When you see it when they're running the ball, the dude's just nasty and he just wants to throw dudes all over the place. You see an issue with some of the top tackles in the draft, like even a Fashanu, when they're pulling out and they're getting to the outside of the numbers, they're hitting one guy and they're like falling on him. Mason McCormick knows these linebackers, sure, I'm going to hit him and fall on him sometimes, but if it's like a corner and a safety, I'm taking both those guys and I'm still trying to run as fast as I can. So I think he does well. And I think he's an intelligent player. He has a good build. He's great as a puller, but he plays a little bit too upright for his size. I think he should probably be a little bit more bent in his knees. And sometimes he's out of position in space.
2,800 snaps in college and only two sacks given up. Now you can point to the fact that he plays for some team that no one's ever heard of called the Jackrabbits, but it's still impressive. So
absolutely,
I didn't have him on my top 5 mostly because of the small school thing, but the statistics are impressive.
I think maybe our 3 might be the same.
I hope so, because unless you got this guy really high.
I do have a guy really high.
Oh, man. Okay, who's your 3?
3, Zach Frazier.
Oh, okay.
I'm guessing 3's your. Who's 3?
Christian Haynes.
Okay, that's what I thought. You have Zach at 2?
No.
You don't have Zach at wait. Oh shit. Okay, wait. Hold on. I want let's hold off on Zach if he's your 1. I'll let you talk about Zach. Go
Okay.
ahead.
I'll be honest with you. Zach bumped up to number 1 because that JPJ stuff about him not testing at the combine is like super interesting to me, and there's already been rumors about him. So
And
he just seemed
he has snap problems.
He seems like the type of player that might fall.
I got close to swapping 2 and 3. Spoiler alert. So Zach Frazier almost moved up a little bit. And it was because of the JPJ stuff. Absolutely. And I was not made aware of some of the snap issues that he had. And then I went back and I was very specifically looking for snap issues for Jackson Powers Johnson. And you watch it and some of the snaps are bad, man. And I'm like, dude, the NFL is already having a problem with centers that are having bad snap problems, which has not been a consistent thing that we've seen in the league ever. And now all of a sudden it's becoming consistent, and this guy is continuing the trend. It's not going to be like he's going to be a bad player for just the snap stuff. Creed Humphrey has some snap issues. Right. He's a really good center, but the non-testing stuff, and he's a big boy. That's a big man.
With tiny arms.
Yeah, and this is the same thing where you like side eye. You side eye some of the T'Vondre Sweat stuff at the Senior Bowl.
Yep.
Now you got to really side eye some of the stuff with the Jackson Powers Johnson stuff.
You sure do.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like Zach Frazier. I think he's a guy, again, I almost moved up to 2 because of the issues with Jackson Powers Johnson. The tape speaks for itself when it comes to JPJ. But I think some of the exterior stuff of not testing and some of the snap issues is something that's really starting to pummel through. And I think this interior offensive lineman, that 2 and 3 can change a little bit. But I like Zach a lot.
Sure.
Do you want me to talk about your 3?
Did you put Christian at 1? Okay, I have to tell you, full disclosure, center is more valuable to me than guard is.
Okay.
Full stop. Zach Frazier gets number 1 for me because he plays the more valuable position. But I love Christian. I absolutely love him. And when the mock drafts first started flowing, the 49ers were getting him in the 2nd, and now he's going to be long gone before the 49ers come back on the clock. So I absolutely
have to select him in the 1st round.
I don't have any argument for you on this except for the fact that I'm dropping Jackson Powers Johnson on all of my stuff right now, and Zach Frazier plays center. And I think what happens here, and again, it's a big board and not a mock draft, but still the two are factored together. I think what happens here is if Jackson Powers drops, you automatically elevate the next guy, and that's Zach Frazier. That's the only reason why I put that way. But I love Christian. I think he's a beast. So go ahead and show out on him.
I said that I really like nasty interior offensive linemen, and we're talking about the nastiest interior offensive linemen. Stop what you're doing right after this. Keep watching. Appreciate it.
Like and
right
comment.
After this is done, go ahead and go watch Christian Haynes at the Senior Bowl. Watch how many motherfuckers he pissed off just because he's just getting under people's skin. They can't get by him. He's putting dudes in the dirt. He's quick. He's a great puller. He's really nasty. He's putting you in the dirt. In the run game, there's not a better interior offensive lineman. He has some issues with the pass stuff because he's really aggressive. That aggressiveness comes out in pass protection as well. But I think he goes and he backs up and he looks to his left and right and nobody's coming at him at first. And so he's like, oh, I'm going to go back up the tackle, or I'm going to go back up the center. And you don't realize, oh, shit, there's a dude stunting right back to me. And I'm not seeing that immediately. And all of a sudden, I'm leaving my assignment and I'm reaching my arm out to try to stop someone because I'm too aggressive. So sitting in that pass protection could be something that he really needs to work on.
Coaching.
In the run game, though, absolutely coaching. He has what it takes to be a very good, Pro Bowl, all-pro level interior guard.
Yep.
He has everything you need out of him. there's been guys in the past who are taken a lot higher than where they're supposed to go because of nastiness and those intangibles. And Christian might be a guy that I know we're seeing him maybe in like the later second, early second, I think is something that is super on the card from just because of how much a team could potentially value what they're doing in that run game and how good they're. I mean, Christian Haynes goes to like a team like the Titans with their coaching staff over there with it's Bill, right? Is Bill the head coach? So the father with him as the offensive line coach, forget about it. Dude's going to be an all pro. You got Skoronski, Haynes, that's a nasty offensive line all of a sudden, and Derrick Henry's gone. So I think that's where I sit with my interior offensive lineman.
Yeah. Christian that's really his only downside is the sitting in coverage and waiting for the stunts and everything. But again, coaching and as a 49er fan, his pull ability, his zone read, the zone run ability, everything. He's so athletic. I don't know. I think that somebody's going to plug him into their offensive line as a starter this year, and he's going to be there for the next 10 years. That's what I expect out of Christian Haynes. So, shout out to that. I am 100% on board with you.
Moving on to safeties, we're on our last couple of position groups. Yeah, dude, told you. See, we're at that 2 hour mark already. I was already saying, I'm like, dude, we're not even gonna have time, bro.
Yeah. Sorry to all the NBA and baseball fans out there, but it is what it is.
It's coming up on on one of the most important dates of NFL season. So, safeties is the next position group. This is where I think the position group gets a little weak. Not a whole lot of guys. I have a 7 and a 6. I don't have a 10. Dadrion Taylor Demerson, is my 7, and Caleb Bullock is my 6. Did you end up doing a lot of stuff on the safeties?
I really just did a top 3.
It's so
I know you
hard
said to do
safeties.
5.
It's fine.
I really like the safety I really like the running mate for Javon Bullard, the other guy from Georgia. And I really like Cole Bishop out of Utah. I know Vaki is also out of Utah, but it's really just the safety position is weird for me because I view it as a replacement level position in the NFL. You know what I mean? It's not. Oh, I can't answer your call. Sorry, I'm podcasting, bro. Yeah, it's just one of those things where
there's so many scheme dependent positions in the NFL, and safety might be like the most scheme dependent.
Plus, we just saw like 8 really good safeties cut this offseason because they made too much money. You know what I mean? And they're barely sticking on teams and everything now. So it's just one of those things. Yeah. Although I have to say, I'm interested to hear your rundown here because I'm guessing you vaulted someone into your top 5 that I wasn't expecting based off of what I have here.
5 is Jaden Hicks.
Okay.
Is he too low for you?
I'm a Jaden Hicks guy.
I like Jaden Hicks, and I think that the highest I would boost him up is 4 if Sion Vaki wants to play running back instead, because I know he's a dual position player. So he'd get bumped off of Vaki just moving off to a different position, which I think he might end up doing anyways. I think Hicks is a good tackler. I think he's really smart. You see him a lot playing closer inside the box. When he is inside the box, he's communicating with a lot of his teammates. Again, it's one of those guys like I talked about, like a Cooper DeJean, where he's playing in the box and he's communicating to his teammates, and he's playing that Mike linebacker role, but he's a safety, where he's a corner like DeJean. I think he's a really smart guy, and I think he's really good in zone coverage. Especially underneath. I know you bring up a lot of these safeties too. When you play him in the box, you're playing him for like tackling or blitzing. He's just good inside the lower zone, those first 10-yard zones. I think he's really impressive there. So depending on the team that he goes towards is depending on how he's going to get used and how successful he's going to be. His man coverage is just really not there.
And
His
I
speed isn't
agree,
fantastic, and
but
he's a little bit over aggressive sometimes.
that's one of the things with the safeties is like man coverage. Like, okay, who cares?
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Depending on the scheme. So yeah, I had him at 3.
yeah.
Who's your 4?
Sion Vaki.
Okay.
So obviously, rare mix of athleticism. We don't see a whole lot of two-side ball players inside of college moving into the NFL. Still not sure on what position they're going to play really. And he's one of those guys that's kind of on that edge. I think he should probably play safety over running back, but it sounds like he really wants to play running back for some reason. I don't know why you would want. Unfortunately, it plays both positions that are like literally just the running back is safety is a running back of the defense, so they're just not being valued very highly anymore. So he's really smart on both sides of the ball. He understands offensive schemes, obviously, and defensive schemes, which makes him really intelligent. His athleticism is pretty rare, again, playing running back and safety. And because he knows kind of where a lot of the offensive schemes are going to be, it's not like he has a knack for playing box or playing high or playing zone or playing man. He's just kind of smart enough to kind of move himself all over the place. So outside of that, he's sometimes out of position because he doesn't take the right guess on what the scheme is going to be on the offensive side of the ball. That's kind of it with him. He's could be a better tackler, but that's it.
I put him at number 5.
Okay. I think it's more of his attitude to tackle more than anything else because he has the ability to.
I think he's going to be an elite level special teamer in the NFL with the speed and his vision as a running back to get down and make the tackles. And that's where I see him. I think he's going to be an elite level special team player, which if you're talking about a 3rd or 4th round guy that can play a little bit of everything in a pinch, that's not a bad player to have.
Yeah, absolutely. You said your 3 is Hicks, right?
Yep.
My 3 is Javon Bullard. Kind of your
what the fuck is going on here? Is there a safety I don't know about?
No, I don't think so.
All right. Well, I got Hicks at 3, and I got Bullard at 2.
Okay.
Cam Kinchins was my 4th. So go ahead.
Well, then we have the same one, right?
Am I missing somebody? Who's your number 2?
Cam Kinchins.
Oh, okay. He's my 4th. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right, we're good. Okay.
Yeah. Javon Bullard's like your prototypical like box safety, who's not great at a lot of the man coverage stuff, which I know you said whoop-de-doo, but his zone coverage is decent. His ability to play the slot end zone is pretty good. I think when he can keep his eyes on one guy only, he's good, but his lack of athleticism, I think, hurts him to play just pure man coverage. And I don't think there's a whole lot for him to do past that. He's a great tackler, and he's intelligent enough to put him in positions to be able to make the tackle, but the coverage skills sometimes are a little bit lacking.
To me, he's a nickel safety. You know, your team's pretty famous for bringing a 3rd safety onto the field. Yep. I think when you go into your nickel or dime looks, you have to have that guy that's willing to come up and lay the fucking boom, and that's this guy. Nickel safety, he'll come up and play the run game when you have the lighter corners on the field, and that's kind of where he fits in for me. Absolutely. Now, being a niche player like that, this high in the class kind of sucks, but that's why this is one of the last position groups we're covering. So. Yeah.
Kinchins is my 2. I think outside of the 1, he's the best is like zone safety. He's like to me, he's like the prototypical like single high. Like he plays a great single high role, really good at the catch point. He's not great in the tackling or getting inside the box. So you're going to want him up high. That's where he's going to be sitting here. He's not going to be sitting down low in the zone. He's not going to be going ahead and covering guys one-on-one and man coverage, especially his back pedal looks really ugly. I don't know if you've watched his back pedal, looks pretty fucking atrocious. And his speed's okay. So like if he's backpedaling and someone makes a cut, his speed's okay to get there. But again, his tackling's not great. So sometimes he misses the tackle a lot of the time, especially with those speedier guys who do play in the slot. You get him against a Lad McConkey's again, his fucking ankle's taken. But yeah, single high, plays up in the zone, and I value that a lot. So that's why I have him at 2.
Yeah. For me, I struggle honestly grading the safeties just because I'm not.
They're difficult.
I don't think that they're super. That his back pedal is fucking awful. He's like it just feels like he can't bend, and I don't love that. And for me, Kitchens, he does everything okay. Yeah, that's basically what I can say for him. He does everything okay. So when you're talking about safety depth, I really don't think he should be. I don't think if he's starting for your team, I think your safeties are really, really weak.
Yeah,
he does everything okay, which is fine.
Yeah, I think there's like one surefire starter, and he's at 1.
Yeah, and that's
new.
Let's see. I can't even think of an off the cusp safety name to make a joke of. So,
yeah, Tyler Nubin is the one. I think he's like the clear cut one in a really, really, really weak safety class
for sure.
But I think he could be actually a pretty top corner out of a lot of safety classes. I mean, if you look at some of the past safety classes in the previous years, you're looking at a guy who's going to be sitting there in the top 3 pretty consistently, top 2 pretty consistently. You really can't say a whole lot of bad things about him. He plays single high really well. He plays man coverage and zone coverage really well. As a slot defender, he's really good, and he has the build and he has the want and to make those tackles. So he's a great blitzer too. Oh man, dude. They used him in the blitz a shit ton. So
now for that reasoning, I don't want to see him in single high in the NFL. That's just a waste of his ability. I want to see him in 2-man deep. Keep somebody back there as that guy back there, and let this dude let him get loose in the middle. Let him blitz off the line. Let him do everything. I think it's funny because I think he's a first round pick. I don't know if he'll go in the first round because there's a lot of stuff there, a lot of talent, but I think he's a first round talent. And then we might not see another safety go to the 3rd round. So there's a big, big gap here. He can play the position in every scheme in the NFL. Like you mentioned, he can play quarters. He can play 2 high. He can play single high. He can play the run. He can play the blitz. He can play everything. There's a lot
you could do with his with scheming him too. A lot of disguising on fake blitzes and dropping him back in zone. He has really good ball skills as a safety as well. So yeah, he's impressive. He's an impressive safety in a weak safety class, but again, he'd be really good in a lot of safety classes. So
yeah, and unlike the last guy we talked about, his back pedal is very quick. It's very controlled. You can bring him up onto the line to show the blitz, and then get him the fuck back out of there. His first step is super explosive. The blitzer, I mean, what I liked about his blitzing is sometimes they blitzed him deep. Like he didn't just bring him up on the line. And sometimes they brought him, 10, 12 yards off the line of scrimmages blitzing, which I don't think that plays too much in the NFL as much as it does in college. And then his ball skills are awesome. So I mean, again, I haven't seen him mocked too much in the first round, and he's not Kyle Hamilton. But
no.
He's still a really, really good player that can play every scheme at the safety position.
I have still not to this day had a safety hit second overall player on a board. I mean, I had Aiden Hutchinson 1 and then him 2. I mean, it's just you're not going to see a lot of safeties that, even with that, he went like 14th. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, the guy that impressive and that good still only goes 14th, man. It's just, like you said, it's a place where at this point in time, safeties aren't valued very much. All right. Running backs. This is
let's get funky.
One. Let's get weird. I'm really curious about this. All right. I have an 8 through 6. 8, I have Braylon Allen. 7, I have Bucky Irving. 6, I have maybe a guy you have in the top 5, Jalen Wright.
You have Jalen Wright 6th.
I do, and I have 2 guys that are not in a lot of guys' top 5s, but I really like them. The rest of the guys 1 through 3, as my cat screams in the background. The rest of my guys 1 through 3 are pretty not 1 through 3, I should say. I've seen them 1 through 3 a lot in the draft in terms of. They're there a lot. Maybe not in the positions, but they're definitely there.
All right, who you got at 5?
My number 5 is Marshawn Lloyd. I mentioned that I like the running back out of USC, and I was not lying.
Okay.
I think he's a guy who, he's really built, right? He looks like a guy who's probably like a fucking bowling ball. But I think he's really quick, and I think his vision's really impressive. I think he's really patient as a running back. I think he sees the holes really well. He bounces a little bit and then he cuts. He does go to the outside maybe a little bit too often. But he also has the speed to make it up. He has the speed to go ahead and hit that corner and try to take it to the outside. So he's not as fast as like a Jalen Wright or some of the other guys in this class too, but he's definitely quick. He has really good athleticism. And he has some agility to him to make guys miss at that first level to get to that second level. So I really like Marshawn Lloyd. I think he's being overlooked, and I really value contact balance and vision. And I think Marshawn Lloyd and all the other guys inside of my top 5 bring all of that too. Contact balance and great vision. Who's your 5?
Bucky Irving.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that he's being overlooked because he's not the prototypical running back, and he doesn't have the prototypical running back build or size or anything like that. But he is not a player. The thing I have the issue with Marshawn is sometimes I just like watching a lot of Caleb just hit the fucking hole. Just go. Like, stop trying to get outside. Stop trying to dance. Just hit the hole and go, my man. Like, we hit the 3-hole. We hit the 3-hole. We hit the 3-hole. And then we bounce it outside because we hit the 3-hole 3 fucking times. If you don't follow the script, if you don't follow the play, the shit we're trying to set up later ain't going to fucking work. And when it comes to the 49ers, everything we do in the first quarter is what we're setting up in the fourth quarter. And Mike McDaniel, everything they do in the first quarter sets up the fourth quarter. Hit the hole, dog. Now, coaching. I'm cool with it. Marshawn could probably be coached up. I just think that in a very weak running back class, I like Bucky's footwork, and I like that he runs, but between the tackles. I don't want to.
Sure.
Somebody fucking kill me for saying this, but Frank Gore used to run between the tackles. He used to have a super low center of gravity. He got hella low and he got through the line and he never took hits. I see that with Bucky a lot. Like he's super low to the ground, man. He doesn't take these massive hits, and he's not a home run hitter. I just think he can be an effective running back. And, frankly, talking about a guy that is going to probably be drafted 4th round. Yeah. I think he brings a lot to the table.
Yeah. Okay. Who's your 4 then?
Jalen Wright.
Okay. I have a guy that you won't have in the top 5. It's Ray Davis. Unless you do.
No, definitely
not. Again, what did I say? I valued good contact balance and great vision, and I think Ray Davis is up there with some of the better vision in the class. I think he's a guy that you could kind of stick wherever you want in terms of scheme, and he just makes it work. I think he's not the speediest guy in the world. Yeah, sure, that's perfectly fine. He's probably not, he might not be like a number 1 running back type, but I think he's a guy who gets you the extra couple yards. He gets a 0-yard gain play and turns it into 3. And it's
because he's decisive.
He's not putting his head down and bowling through. He sees the hole immediately, and he's one cut and right in the hole, and he knows exactly where he's going. I
love one cut running backs. I love one cut. I'm with you.
And I think that's where Ray Davis sits, So I like Jalen Wright. I do. I think the speed is great, but I'm not going to value over some of the stuff I value more.
And your guy does not have long speed at all.
No, he doesn't.
And he is not a pass blocker worth a shit. So he's not the problem. The problem with putting him on the field is, you kind of are foreshadowing what the play is going to be. And so he really needs to work on that at the next level to become a little more versatile.
But I think he can. Tony Pollard had
coaching.
Tony Pollard had a shit ton of issues on pass blocking.
Terrible.
And he
was awful.
The past 2 years, he's been fantastic.
Yep.
So, I think it definitely could be coached up. And even with his size, I think he's fine. I think he could get there for sure.
Yeah. Ray Davis, one cut ability, really great vision. He makes plays. I'm good with all of that. I just didn't put him in the top 5 because if you can't, with my football team, if you can't block, you don't get on the field. And that's not my mentality. That's just the coach's mentality.
Yeah. Who's your 3?
Trey Benson.
All right. Yeah, I'm curious.
Is he your 1? No, he's number 2. He's the guy you're thinking is number 2. I didn't make him number 1. I promise.
Okay. Wait. Are you sure? Is the guy from Michigan 1?
No, he is not.
Okay, so
Blake Corum is number 2. Blake
our
Corum is number 2.
Our 1s and our 3s are mixed. Our 1 and
3. You put Jonathan Brooks 3?
Jonathan Brooks is 3.
Okay.
I went back to 3 position groups, and it was these last 3 because I fucking couldn't decide. And I rewatched Jonathan Brooks, and I enjoyed what I saw out of him. I am nervous about the torn ACL. He's not a very good receiver, which is fine. It's okay. But I don't think his vision is fantastic. I think he has good contact balance. I think he has very good speed. I think he's a good pass blocker. He has good size. His agility is really good for his size. He's a stand-up runner that kind of you don't expect to make some of the moves that he does. But the only reason he's at 3 is because I like the guys at 2 and 1 a little bit better. And I had Blake Corum. I'll say this now. I had Corum lower in my first watch around, and I watched him again. And I'm like, what the fuck did I miss the first time around?
Put some respect on his name, motherfucker.
I'm like, damn. I was like, I must have fucking missed something. I'm like, because I was fucking wrong.
So do you want to talk? I agree with everything that you said about Jonathan Brooks, so we can move on from that. Obviously, we're in lockstep with Corum. What made you bring Corum up? Because I've talked about him in the past. You haven't liked him. What changed your mind this time to bring him up to number 2 for you?
The dual threat ability as a catcher and a runner. And I didn't see. He doesn't have great speed to get to the outside, but on the inside tackles with his vision, he makes, and it's not like he's seeing the holes. He's almost making holes appear sometimes where you're like, oh, he's stuffed. And all of a sudden he's like wiggling through like a little tiny space. You're like, how the fuck did you get in there? Like, that doesn't even make any fucking sense. Like,
slender and footwork.
I was going to say he's also fucking like 5 foot nothing, so contact balance.
There's just so much of his game. I watched a shit ton of Michigan last year. There's so much of his game where you think that's going to be a 1 yard loss or 1 yard gain, and it's a 6, 7, 8 yard, you know. And Michigan, they had a lighter schedule last year, but he's been doing it for year after year after year after year after year. So I love Blake Corum. I think he's going to be successful at the next level. He's slightly suspicious as a pass blocker, but the difference between him and Ray is that he's willing. He's a willing blocker. And I'm okay with that because that kind of stuff can be coached up. When you're willing to get up in there and make the effort to block, the coaching will come with that.
He's not chopping at your knees just because you're a smaller guy, you don't know how to block. Yeah, no, I get it. Trey's my 1. Trey's been my 1 since the second I watched him.
Jacob wants Trey on the Cowboys.
I do want Trey Benson on the Cowboys. And what solidified it was his 40 time, 4.39, I think is what he ran. If I remember right, 4.39, I'm pretty sure. So it's like the same thing with like Kool-Aid. Like Kool-Aid solidified his 1 with a 4.42, with a broken foot. So it's one of those things where contact balance and vision. I think that contact balance, there's nobody better in this class with better contact balance. And then you want to couple in the 4.39 speed on top of that. There's a lot of issues with him in the passing game. I 100% agree with that. So he's probably he's a 2-down back, but I like what he can do on those 2 downs more than anybody else in the class. So I know he has some issues with sometimes he wants same thing with Marshawn Lloyd. He wants to get to the outside a lot, but the difference is this guy has 4.3 fucking 9 speed and he can get outside. It just depends on the scheme he's going to run. And I think a lot of the stuff that we're talking about is very coachable, but his build, his size, his contact balance, and his speed is uncoachable. I want him.
Yeah, I'm just going to put this out here to come back on. I think that he's going to have a terrible rookie year in the NFL, and I think he'll end up a little better. I think this is going to be the type of player that his athleticism was so over the top in the games that he played that he's going to really struggle in his entrance to the NFL. The fact that everybody's as fast as him. I know he had the 40 time, but it really reminds me of Trey Lance and watching Trey Lance and realizing, well, fuck, he's slow. That sucks. He's supposed to be a running, scrambling quarterback, and he cannot get to the corner. There's absolutely zero chance he's getting to the corner against Micah Parsons. You know, it's just
he doesn't have to if he's playing on the Cowboys.
True, which is funny because Brock Purdy could, because his 3-cone is so elite, right? His 40 ain't great, so I just sometimes 40-yard dash is not the end all be all.
So is JJ McCarthy. So 3-cone is crazy.
So I just think Trey's going to have – I think he's going to have to learn to trust his eyes and trust what he's seeing in front of him a little bit more than just letting his natural athleticism and speed. I think his intro into the NFL is going to be now he may be one of them players where he hits the hole and the linebacker doesn't fill the gap and he goes for an 80-yard burner. You know, you might see those plays out of him, but I just think he's going to have to adjust to the speed and athleticism of the NFL, which is why I dropped him to 3, because I think that – as a runner, sometimes he relies on his athleticism as opposed to the technicalities of the position just a little bit too much. Now, 3 or 4 years from now, I think he's going to be just fine. I think he's going to be a very good player in the NFL, but his intro to the NFL, I think, will be a little rough for him.
Yeah, and putting it out there for all the Cowboys fans, I want every single guy, any one of the guys who are 5 through 1, I will take. Honestly, I don't want to draft Braylon Allen, so he ends up at the bottom of the list because I didn't scout any more guys. So I just love Braylon, you know, and unfortunately we're linked to him pretty frequently. That's why I put that out there. Linebackers, you ready to get weird again?
I got to be honest with you. I didn't do much on this just because I figured that we were going to be coming up on our time limit, which is happening. So yeah, let's get weird. I'll let you carry this one unless there's something that I really, really agree on or don't agree on.
8 through 6, that's all I got. I have Michael Barrett. 7, I have Tommy Eichenberg. 6 is probably a surprise, but I have Jeremiah Trotter Jr.
Okay, Jeremiah is my 4th.
Yeah. He's too stiff. He moves like a 60-year-old and a 20-year-old at the same fucking time somehow. Instead of turning, he does this weird fucking hop step and turns. He hops and turns, so he loses some of his speed, which is not very much anyways. His agility and his change of direction, I just think, is really, really poor. And I don't know if he really sees the run game as much as I would like to have a guy that big to maybe shoot a gap and stop a run like you would want him to. I just don't know if he has the prototypical size. He looks really good. You see him on the field, you're like, fuck, dude, that dude looks like he can crush some dudes. And he can. He just has to get there first. So he's just piss poor in the pass game. And I have some questions with his eyes in the run game.
Yeah, to me, he's super smart linebacker, puts himself in the right position to make plays, which is important because his size and speed and athleticism do not. Not a starting linebacker in the NFL.
Yeah. Here comes a disagreement. My 5 is Edgerrin Cooper.
Yeah.
Which is your
2.
I know you said, yeah, okay. Yeah. I kind of explained to you a little bit. He's out of position. He's out of where he's supposed to be a lot of the times. And where I was seeing him, he's really good shooting some of the gaps. But if he guesses wrong and shoots one of those gaps incorrectly, him missing his assignment is like blowing a play up way more than if he would have just stuck to where he was supposed to be. So it's like he's trying to be smarter than where he possibly really is, which could be fixed with a lot of film review and watching. But he's just all over the place sometimes. He's like a wild boar running around, trying to chase down anything he can, and he's trying to make up with it he's super fucking athletic. He's super quick, super athletic, but I
don't know.
I think he's trying to, I don't think sometimes he's trying to guess on where he's supposed to be. And I don't think he really sees it.
I don't know if you noticed, I took my headphones off because I don't want to hear you say anything bad about Adrian Cooper. So now that it seems like you're done talking, no, I mean, I get what you're saying. I just think a lot of that's going to be cleared up by coaching. He's
sure.
He's explosive and he's angry and he wants to hit people, and I like that in my linebackers.
Absolutely.
I just want linebackers that are going to fucking get downhill. I know he gets manipulated by pre-snap motion. That's what everybody says. Every single draft manipulated by pre. I'm like, did you guys even scout the guy, or did one guy do it? Everybody copied it. He's out of control. All that shit. That's fine. Let's coach the man up.
Yeah. Sure.
Again, a base down linebacker, probably not a guy that's going to be in nickel and dime situations, and that's fine. There's not a ton of linebacker depth here, so.
Yeah. 4 is another surprise. Junior Colson is my 4.
Colson's my 3.
Okay. You wanna talk about Colson a little bit? Because we're probably not that far off.
Not a great athlete, decent.
Yeah.
I think that his background and the story and everything. Michigan wins an Natty, blah blah blah. I like that he's physical, and just like the opposite of Edgerrin, he's in position a lot, and he doesn't definitely get fooled by the pre-snap stuff. But at the end of the day, he's not a super great athlete, so his change of direction and hips are super tight. And he's probably a starting 4-3 linebacker in base formations if he can get there. But the upside of like Edgerrin Cooper, his ability to me would make him worth more than taking Colson here, just because I think Colson comes out on the field day one, and that's who he's going to be as a player. His instincts are really good. He's hella smart. Not too much you can coach up there. He's just limited in the dynamics of explosiveness and athletic ability and shit like that. So,
sure, yeah, no, I get it.
You must have something funky at 2 and 1.
2 and 3, I have weird shit. 1, I don't have anything weird. I don't think. 1's kind of like consensus I see for a lot of people. So
we don't have to talk about
1 for a lot of people. Then. Yeah, Peyton Wilson's the one for me. 2 and 3 are the weird. I have 2 guys I watched back to back, watched the same fucking games back to fucking back. Maurice Liafau is my 3, and then JT Bertrand is my 2.
Oh,
yeah. Some of the same stuff that we talked about Junior Colson about being like a below average athlete. It definitely shows up. He does it. Definitely has like some of the same like stiff hipness. But he always seems to be able to track down whoever. He's never out of position for me. But when the play goes to the opposite side of the field, he is able to snake himself to make that chase down tackle. I forgot who they were playing when I was watching it, but there was a play where his running mate, Maurice is on the other side, and the play ends up going to the left-hand side. And so they're all shifting, and he is right on the edge on the left. Sorry, it goes to the left. He's on his left, so the right-hand side. So he's on the opposite side, and he takes one step in, he sees where it's going, and he comes out, and he ends up making a straight V line. Exactly, his pursuit angle was perfect to take down the running back exactly where he needs to be. And he takes those pursuit angles are really, really impressive when he's on the opposite side of the field for someone who's not he's not an above average athlete from what I'm seeing. And it's, again, stiff hips. He seems to be in the right position and puts himself in the right places time in and time out. With Maurice, I see a guy who's almost like the exact opposite. He doesn't put himself in the greatest positions, but He fights through a lot of blocks. I think he's pretty strong to fight through a lot of the. Don't put a tight end on him because he's going to get through it. And the guards, he's going to fight through those as well. He's going to be able to get off those blocks, disengage, and try to come up with those shoelace tackles pretty consistently. So, as tacklers in the run game, I like both these guys. Bertrand is also another guy I see decent in coverage. He's not a great athlete, but he sits well in his zone. He reads the quarterback's eyes and kind of takes away certain parts of the field. That's kind of where I like him. But this isn't a really weak linebacker class. I see Peyton Wilson as like a mid-second, a high second round pick. Outside of that, Bertrand could probably take in a late second, early third, and everyone else after that. I don't fucking care. Like, that's how I see it. Realistically, Edgerrin Cooper, Peyton Wilson, Jeremiah Trotter, those guys are probably going to go mid-second, early third is probably where they're going. I know Bertrand is going to go probably way later, but that's just how I see him. So, yeah, it's a funky ass list, but yeah, that's how I see these guys.
Yeah, I mean, none of these guys except for Peyton Wilson are probably starters, and even Peyton Wilson has a super, super long injury history, and he's like 24. So,
yep.
Again, things that are going to be held against him.
Yeah. Yep. Tight ends, last one.
Yeah.
The weakest position. I don't have a 6 through 10. It's the only ones I don't have a 6 through 10 at all.
Nice.
5, I have Theo Johnson.
Okay. Theo Johnson is not on my list.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing you don't have Ben Sinnott on your list.
I do. He's my
friend. Who the fuck? Okay.
Maybe do I not have? I know some guy have. He's a kid from Iowa, I think. I don't remember his name. Okay, do you have Cade Stover on your list?
Cade Stover is my number 2.
Okay, Jatavian Sanders, do you have him on the list?
Number 3.
Okay, obviously Brock's the undisputed 1.
Yeah, so you're not talking. You don't like Eric All from Iowa.
I didn't even really do any work on Eric. I just didn't get around to him. I haven't put a whole lot of stock in the tight end class this year, so it's just really not an impressive. It's not like a class I give a fuck about. So it's gonna be one of those things with the tight ends. I do like 5 guys. I end up doing the work on them, and I'm probably not gonna go past that. Some of the other guys where I'm like, I have 8 guys in there. I'll probably do 2 more. I have like 16 guys in there. I'll probably do 4 more just to get to an even number. But outside of that, I'm not doing too much. Theo Johnson, where do you kind of see him? I know you have him higher, right? You have him 4.
Who? Theo Johnson?
Oh, no, Theo, you don't have him. Oh, okay.
Yeah, I didn't rank Theo. I haven't looked at any Theo.
I think he's pretty impressive when it comes to blocking. I think he at least can be very impressive when it comes to blocking. He has a couple of missed assignments where it's not like he's not missed assignments. He's just not using his size to his ability. He's like 6'5", 6, somewhere around there. And he has really long arms. He can use his arms to a little bit more to his advantage to make those blocks. And I think he hauls in the passes pretty well. I don't think I didn't really see any drops on tape, but it's a guy where I go look at him, I'm like, yeah, he's fine. He's all right. He's okay blocker. He brings in a couple of the passes he's supposed to, but outside of that, he's like an underneath guy. You kind of give him like an option route where you let him do a little like shove block on, you let him like leak out in the flat. Like, he's going to probably be a second tight end on a team that you bring out when you have a blocking tight end, two others on the field. So he's not great, honestly. But most of these guys aren't. So again, is everything okay in my eyes?
I put Ben at 5 because he can play out of the backfield, which means he can play fullback as well. So when you're drafting a player in a weak class, if he's dual position, fullback and tight end, he has a little more value to me. That's what I'm trying to say.
Sure. I mean, all the stuff when it comes to Ben are stupid ass things. Like, he gets overpowered by, or he gets he got pancaked by an outside linebacker on one of the films I saw. Congratulations. He's a fucking tight end. Like, that's the coach's fault for putting a fucking tight end on an island out there. That's fucking dumb. He gets bumped off of his initial breaks in coverage coming off the line on press when he's getting pressed up. Cool. I mean, that's great. If it's a corner, he doesn't really have an issue. If it's a strong linebacker, sometimes he does. But I don't really see. He's quick. I think he's pretty shifty. But I don't see a whole lot of issues with him either. I think this is a fine class. It's okay at best. Second string tight ends, outside of maybe the one, and maybe the two if he develops nicely, or three.
I actually think Jatavion Sanders might go in the second round.
I think he will,
because his athleticism and what he brings to the table is definitely can be coached properly. So
I think so as well, and I think he has a size to him where he could be a better run blocker. And we're not talking about a guy who's a bad run blocker, right? So, he could just be a little bit better. And I think he does get overshadowed a little bit when it comes to the who else is on the team? Xavier Worthy, AD Mitchell. He could probably have a lot more production if he was on another team.
For sure.
So, yeah, I like Jatavion Sanders a lot. Obviously, Brock is the one, and I think the one guy, Stover, is kind of the end-all, be-all for blocking tight ends. He's your fucking what's his name out of Georgia? Was last year, or what's his name? Georgia tackle. I know I was just bringing up my 2023 big board the other day. Darnell Washington. He's like Darnell Washington, except Cade Stover's a little bit of a better receiver. But I think PFF, I was listening to something, and I know PFF is not a big fan of Cade Stover when it comes to some of the receiving grades. But I know he's better than what PFF is actually saying, especially on tape. He's not fantastic, but I think he's just as good as a Theo Johnson. And I think he's not as quick as Ben, but I think he's just as adequate. You might not get the long stuff out of him, but if you need a guy to sit in the pockets, and I think he's really intelligent. I think he's intelligent in that role, but that's why he's in that 3. He's not going to go any higher than that.
Yeah. Outside of Brock Bowers, who's a Swiss Army knife do-all, I do not have much in-depth analysis for the tight ends.
Yeah, and it just,
which is too bad, because I like tight ends.
Yeah, it's just and it's funny because we're coming off of a really good tight end class, a very good tight end class, and then moving into a not so great one. So
I recommend all these guys sign up for George Kittle's tight end university. That's what they need.
Yeah, probably pretty good. Well, we're at 2.5 hours, so that's kind of it. Unfortunate for, again, like you said, all the NBA and baseball fans. It's fortunate for us too, because I typed out a couple of pages worth of stuff for the Knicks and for the Nuggets and the Bucks and some of the stuff that's coming up for free agency, and I got to get my eyes a little bit on the prospects, the NBA prospects coming up. So I'm a little bit excited for that. Yeah, so a little bit disappointed.
The good news is that the NBA regular season ends on Sunday. So when we come back on Wednesday, unless anything drastic happens in the NFL, we'll be able to talk about it.
What time do you get off on Tuesday? Because we might want to do it on Tuesday so I can get it out on
7.
Wednesday. Okay, so we might want to do Tuesday, something short just for the NBA segment, maybe another probably baseball segment too, and then how do you? I guess we can go and end this and we can talk about this after. But besides that, Drew, any wrap up final thoughts? Fuck, I have 9 pages of Google Docs worth of notes on these fucking guys. It's fucking stupid.
No, I mean, I think we'll slap out a mock draft also next week, right?
Next week, yep. Our 2-round mock draft. I think you and I should I think you and I should probably get on that one in terms of early back and forth on what we think will actually happen, not just surprise each other. It'll be our final consensus mock.
And we're gonna do this as what we think is gonna happen, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's you and I will text. We should probably start on that like tomorrow.
Are you on board with Jaden Daniels at 2 yet?
We'll text.
A scout and a gambler.
All right, guys. If you stuck around to the end or you tuned into the live stream, I do appreciate it. Yeah. I apologize for the almost 3. I said 2.5 hours. Got 3 hours. I'm lying my ass off. I appreciate it. If you stuck around to the end, leave a like, leave a comment, yell at me for the Jaden Daniels stuff. I don't give a shit. Follow us on TikTok, Twitch, YouTube, whatever you're on. Make sure you hit that follow button, subscribe button, whatever it is.
And drop a note in the comments. Tell me another famous athlete I look like, because I do enjoy the comparisons.
Right, we gotta get a baseball comparison, and we got it all rounded out.
I think I look like Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson personally, but that's just me. If you smell, oh, we don't want to get copyrighted, right? Okay.
Yeah.
Better not do that.
Everyone took us down. That's it.
Podcast canceled by the final boss.
Yeah, right. All right. Well, besides that, we will see you guys next week. See you.
Peace.